room is dark, and the world outside has surrendered to silence. But inside your mind, the lights are blazing, and the noise is deafening. The bed, a sanctuary meant for rest, has become a battlefield. On this field, the ghosts of yesterday's conversations replay without end, and the armies of tomorrow's anxieties run endless drills, rehearsing every possible failure, every potential disaster. Your body is still, but your mind is running a marathon through a landscape of worry and regret. This is the quiet torment of a mind that does not know how to rest. If this experience feels familiar, know that you are not alone. This is not a personal failing, but a fundamental condition of the modern human experience. We are taught to hold on, to achieve, to control. And so, we spend our nights clinging to what is gone, resisting what is present, and fearing what is to come. Our mind becomes a vessel, filled to the very brim with the sediment of our attachments and aversions. It is so full of mental noise that there is no space left for peace, no room for the profound quiet that allows for deep, restorative sleep. We are trapped, not by the world, but by the habits of our own perception. But what if the answer was not to fight harder? What if the key to unlocking this mental prison was not to build stronger walls, but to realize that the walls themselves are an illusion? There is an ancient path, a wisdom taught for thousands of years, that offers not a battle, but a release. It is the gentle practice of looking deeply, of observing reality as it is. It is the path of contemplating impermanence, or as the Buddha called it, Anicca. We invite you on a journey tonight, a guided contemplation structured in 3 stages, a 3-hour passage not measured by the clock, but by the depth of your letting go. This is a journey to unburden the mind, layer by layer. It is a process of guiding your awareness away from the chaos of thought and back to the spacious stillness that is your true nature, the quiet home that is always waiting for you, especially in the sacred hours before you sleep. And so we begin. The first stage of this journey does not ask you to climb a mountain or solve a complex puzzle. It asks for something much simpler, and yet much more profound. It asks you to come home, to return your awareness, which has been scattered across the landscapes of past and future, to the only place you ever truly exist, right here, right now, in this body. The mind tells stories, endless, conflicting, and exhausting stories. The body, however, tells only the truth. It is our anchor in the storm, our connection to the earth, our first and most fundamental teacher of impermanence. For this first hour of contemplation, we will do nothing more than listen to the simple, honest truth of the body. We will learn its language, not of words, but of sensation, of breath, of life itself. We begin by closing the book of our thoughts and opening ourselves to the wisdom of the flesh. Let your awareness settle, first, on the most rhythmic, most constant companion you have, your breath. Do not try to change it. Do not force it to be deep or slow. Simply notice it. Notice the subtle sensation of the cool air as it enters your nostrils, a gentle touch from the outside world. And notice the feeling of warmth as it leaves, carrying with it what is no longer needed. Feel the gentle rise of your chest, of your abdomen, as the lungs fill, a quiet expansion of life. And feel the gentle fall as they empty, a natural surrender, a letting go. Each breath is a complete cycle, a miniature life. It is born, it exists for a moment, and then it passes away, making space for the next. This breath that you are experiencing right now, this very one, will never happen again. It is unique, it is precious, and it is gone. And another arrives, in and out, arising and passing. This is the fundamental rhythm of the universe, playing itself out within your own frame. Your only task is to watch this simple, miraculous tide. The mind will wander, that is its nature. It will pull you back into a worry, a plan, a memory. When you notice this has happened, gently, without any judgment, without any frustration, simply guide your awareness back to the feeling of the air, back to the rising and falling. Each time you return to the breath, you are strengthening a muscle of the mind, the muscle of presence. The breath is your anchor. The storm of thoughts may rage, but the anchor holds you steady in the quiet depths of the present moment. Stay with it. Let the breath breathe itself. You are the silent, peaceful witness to this constant, gentle change. Now, allow the field of your awareness to expand. From the focus point of the breath, let it gently widen to include the entire body, lying here in stillness. Let your attention drift down, all the way down to the soles of your feet. Can you feel them? You may not feel much, perhaps just a slight tingling, a sense of warmth, or the soft pressure of the blanket. Whatever is there, just notice it. There is no right or wrong feeling. There is only what is. Let your awareness slowly travel upwards, to your ankles, your calves, your knees. Feel the weight of your legs on the mattress. Feel the points of contact, the areas of pressure. Notice any tension you might be holding in your thighs, in your hips. You do not need to do anything about it. The first step is simply to notice, to be aware. Ah, there is tightness here. That is all. Bring this gentle, non-judgmental awareness to your stomach, your lower back. This is an area where we hold so much of our stress. Simply illuminate it with your attention. Feel your chest continuing to rise and fall with the breath, a steady, reliable movement. Let your awareness scan across your shoulders, a common storage place for the burdens of the day. Feel their weight. Then move your attention down your arms to your hands. Notice the position of your fingers. Are they curled or open? Is there a pulsing sensation in your fingertips? Finally, bring your awareness to your neck, your jaw, your face. We hold so much tension in the tiny muscles around our eyes and mouth. See if you can just notice it, without needing to force it to relax. As you scan your body in this way, you begin to see that it is not a solid, static thing. It is a vibrant, flowing field of ever-changing sensations. An itch may arise on your cheek. Watch it. Where did it come from? How does it feel? Notice the urge to scratch it, but just for a moment, simply observe the itch itself. You will find that it has a life of its own. It appears, it might grow stronger, and then, without you doing anything at all, it will fade and disappear. This is a profound lesson. The discomfort was not permanent. It was a fleeting event in consciousness. The ache in your back, the tension in your shoulders, the coolness of your feet, all of it is in constant flux. The body is not a single, solid object. It is a river of sensation, forever flowing, forever changing. By watching it, you are learning, on a deep, cellular level, the truth of impermanence. Now, let us widen the lens of our contemplation even further. Consider this body, this vessel that you inhabit. It was not always as it is in this moment. There was a time when it was a single cell, then a tiny infant, utterly dependent and new. That infant body is gone. It was replaced by the body of a toddler, learning to stumble and walk, filled with boundless energy and curiosity. That body, too, has vanished. It gave way to the body of a child, a teenager, with all of its awkward growth and rapid changes. And that, too, has passed. The body you had 10 years ago, even 1 year ago, is not the body you have today. Billions of cells have died and been replaced. Its form has shifted. Its capabilities have changed. You are living in a body that is in a constant, unstoppable process of transformation. And this process will continue. The body you have now will continue to change. Hair will gray, skin will wrinkle, strength will eventually fade. This is not a morbid or pessimistic thought. It is not a tragedy. It is the most natural, universal, and unavoidable truth of existence. Everything that is put together must one day come apart. Everything that is born must one day pass away. The suffering comes not from this truth, but from our resistance to it. We cling so desperately to an image of ourselves, to youth, to vitality, to health, as if we could command the river to stop flowing. This contemplation is an act of love, an act of letting go of that struggle. By seeing the entire arc of the body's journey, we can hold our present form with more lightness, more gratitude, and less fear. We can appreciate its strength today, without panicking about its weakness tomorrow. We are simply a temporary passenger in this beautiful, ever-changing biological form. There is a timeless story from India that illustrates this profound acceptance. A young mother named Kisa Gotami was driven mad with grief when her only child died. Unable to accept his death, she carried his small body through her village, begging everyone she met for a medicine that could restore his life. People pitied her, thinking she had lost her mind. Finally, a wise man told her to go see the Buddha. She went, laid her child at his feet, and pleaded for the miracle medicine. The Buddha looked at her with immense compassion and said, "There is only one way to cure your son. You must go back into the village and bring me a single mustard seed from a house where no one has ever died." Hopeful, Kisa Gotami rushed back to the village. At the first house, she asked for a mustard seed. "Of course," the woman said, "we have plenty." As she was about to take it, Kisa Gotami remembered the Buddha's condition. "Has anyone in this house ever died?" she asked. The woman's face fell. "Oh child," she said, "the living are few, but the dead are many. We lost our father just last year." Kisa Gotami went to the next house, and the next, and the next. The story was the same everywhere. Every family had mustard seeds, but every family had also known the deep pain of loss. As dusk fell, she finally understood. Her sorrow was not hers alone. The law of death, the law of change, was not a curse placed upon her, but a universal condition of all life. This realization did not erase her pain, but it transformed her suffering. It connected her to all of humanity, to the very fabric of existence. Like Kisa Gotami, we wander through our lives, searching for a special medicine to make our own body, our own life, exempt from the law of change. But there is no house that has not known loss, and there is no body that is not subject to impermanence. The acceptance of this truth is the mustard seed of wisdom. It is the beginning of peace. By anchoring ourselves in the changing reality of our own body, we have taken the first crucial step. We have withdrawn our energy from the frantic, imaginary worlds of the past and future. We have placed our attention firmly in the here and now, in the living, breathing, pulsing truth of our own flesh. We have seen that even solid-seeming matter is in constant flux. We have learned that discomfort arises and passes away. We have made peace with the natural, inevitable arc of life. This is the foundation. From this place of grounded, embodied awareness, we are now prepared to look at something even more volatile, even more subtle. Having observed the weather in the body, we can now turn our gentle, unwavering attention to the weather in the mind, to the ceaseless, shifting clouds of our feelings. Having anchored your awareness in the solid ground of the body, we now turn our attention inward to a realm that is more fluid, more volatile, and often the very source of our nightly turmoil. We enter the world of feelings, of sensations that are not purely physical. In the Buddhist tradition, this is known as Vedana, the immediate tone of experience, the way our mind instinctively labels every moment before a single thought is even formed. This happens so quickly, so automatically, that we are rarely aware of it. And yet, this simple, primal reaction is the pivot point upon which our entire experience of happiness or suffering turns. The war we fight in the dark of the night is not against the world, but against our own feelings. We wrestle with the shadows of sadness. We try to outrun the specter of anxiety, and we desperately try to cage the fleeting bird of happiness. For this second hour of contemplation, we will learn to stop fighting. We will simply sit by the river of our feelings and watch it flow, learning its currents, understanding its nature, and realizing, finally, that we are not the river, but the silent, unmoving riverbank. Let your awareness become very subtle. As you lie here, simply notice how every experience that arises in your consciousness has a certain flavor or tone. The teachings break this down into 3 simple categories. First, there are pleasant feelings. This might be the physical comfort of your bed, the warmth of the blanket, or a happy memory that drifts into your mind. Perhaps the echo of a loved one's laugh or a moment of success from your day. Observe what the mind does when it encounters a pleasant feeling. Notice the subtle instinct to grasp, to cling, to hold on to it. The mind says, "This is nice. I want more of this. Don't let it end." This clinging, this grasping, is itself a very subtle form of tension. It is the beginning of suffering, because all feelings, especially pleasant ones, are by their very nature as fleeting as a beautiful sunset. The moment they pass, the clinging creates a sense of lack, of disappointment. The second category is unpleasant feelings. This is the territory we spend so much energy avoiding. It is the sting of a criticism you received, the ache of loneliness, the knot of anxiety in your stomach as you think about tomorrow's challenges. It is the raw feeling of fear, of sadness, of anger. Observe the mind's immediate reaction to these feelings. It is one of resistance, of aversion. The mind pushes it away, saying, I don't want this. Get this away from me. This shouldn't be happening. This pushing, this resistance, is like trying to fight your own shadow. It is an exhausting and futile battle. We build elaborate stories around the unpleasant feeling, which only serves to pour fuel on the fire. The third category, and the one we most often ignore, is neutral feelings. These are the countless sensations that are neither pleasant nor unpleasant. The feeling of the air on your skin, the faint ambient hum of the house, the simple sensation of your hands resting on the bed. For most of our lives, we pass over these moments completely, our minds restlessly searching for the next hit of pleasure or the next threat of pain. But in this practice, we learn to rest in the neutral. It is the calm, quiet background of our existence. By learning to notice and appreciate these neutral feelings, we cultivate a deep sense of equanimity and presence. We learn that we do not need to be constantly stimulated to be at peace. Peace is already here, in the simple, unadorned reality of the present moment. Let us now use a powerful metaphor to hold this understanding. Imagine that your mind, your fundamental awareness, is like a vast, open sky. Feelings, joy, sadness, anger, fear, peace are like the weather. Sometimes the sky is filled with bright, brilliant sunshine, a feeling of pure happiness. It feels wonderful, but the sky does not try to hold on to the sun. It knows the sun will set. At other times, a sudden, violent thunderstorm of anger or frustration can roll in with flashing lightning and loud thunder. The sky is not afraid. It does not resist the storm. It simply allows the storm to happen, providing the space for it to express itself and, eventually, to pass. Some days, a thick, gray fog of anxiety descends, obscuring everything. You can't see far, and there is a sense of unease. The sky does not become the fog. The sky is the space in which the fog appears. This is a profound shift in identity. You are not your feelings. You are not an anxious person. You are the vast, silent awareness in which the feeling of anxiety is currently taking place. You are not a sad person. You are the sky that is allowing the rain of sadness to fall. When you realize this, you stop identifying with the weather. You no longer believe that you are the storm. This creates a space, a breathing room between you and the intensity of the feeling. In that space, freedom is born. You can watch the clouds of your emotions drift by without being carried away by them. The Buddha once shared a teaching that perfectly captures the practical application of this wisdom. He said that an ordinary person, when experiencing pain, is like being struck by two arrows. The first arrow is the actual event itself. It is the physical pain of a headache, the emotional pain of a harsh word from a friend, the mental pain of a worrying thought. This first arrow is, to a large extent, unavoidable. Life in this world involves sickness, loss, and disappointment. There will always be first arrows. The problem, the Buddha taught, is that we almost immediately shoot a second arrow into ourselves. This second arrow is our reaction to the first. It is our mental proliferation, our commentary, our story about the pain. The first arrow is the headache. The second arrow is the thought, oh no, a headache. This is going to ruin my night. What if it's a brain tumor? I can't handle this. The first arrow is the critical comment from your boss. The second arrow is the endless loop of, he thinks I'm an idiot. I'm going to lose my job. I'm a failure. This second arrow is pure, self-inflicted suffering. It is the difference between clean pain and dirty suffering. It is the essence of Fian Nao, the afflictive state we find ourselves in before sleep. The entire practice of watching feelings is learning to feel the impact of the first arrow without firing the second. An unpleasant feeling arises, a knot of worry, a pang of sadness. The untrained mind immediately launches the second arrow of storytelling and resistance. The trained mind, however, does something radically different. It turns its gentle awareness directly toward the sensation of the first arrow. It investigates it with curiosity. Ah, here is worry. Where is it in the body? It feels like a tightness in the chest, a vibration. How interesting. It does not add a story. It does not judge it as bad. It just feels it as pure, raw energy. And when you do this, you discover something miraculous. The feeling, when you don't feed it with the second arrow of your thoughts, has a very short lifespan. It arises, it peaks, and it dissolves, just like a wave in the ocean, just like a cloud in the sky. By refusing to fire the second arrow, you break the chain reaction of suffering. You allow the natural impermanence of feelings to run its course. This is the path to peace. It is not about never feeling pain. It is about learning not to add unnecessary suffering on top of it. So, as you lie here, having found a home in the body, you can now rest as the sky of your own mind. You have learned to welcome the pleasant feelings without clinging, to allow the unpleasant feelings without resisting, and to appreciate the quiet beauty of the neutral feelings. You have seen that you are not the weather, but the sky. You have learned to feel the sting of the first arrow without reaching for the second. A great peace can be found in this. You have brought a compassionate awareness to your heart, to the very currents of your emotional life. Now, having calmed the body and soothed the heart, we are ready for the final stage of our journey. We will turn our gaze to the very source of the winds, to the maker of the clouds themselves. We will look directly at the ceaseless, ephemeral, and magical world of thought. We have journeyed from the solid earth of the body to the shifting weather of our feelings. We have found an anchor in the breath and learned to sit peacefully as the clouds of emotion drift through the sky of the mind. Now, in this final and most profound stage of our contemplation, we turn our gentle awareness to the source of the weather itself. We look directly at the nature of thought. This is the realm of concepts, of stories, of memories and plans. It is the architect of our identity and the storyteller of our suffering. For most of our lives, we are completely identified with this stream of thinking. We believe we are our thoughts. The invitation of this final hour is to take a step back, to sit on the bank of the river of thought and watch it flow by, without being swept away by its current. This is the path to the great liberation, the discovery of a peace that is not dependent on what you are thinking, but on the simple, silent awareness that is doing the watching. Begin by noticing, without any specific goal, the thoughts that are moving through your mind right now. Perhaps it's a memory from the day, a line from a song, a worry about an email you need to send, or a judgment about this very practice. See if you can view these thoughts not as facts and not as commands, but simply as events. Imagine you are sitting at the bottom of a clear, still lake, looking up. The thoughts are like leaves, gently drifting down through the water. One leaf is a memory, another is a plan, another is a worry. They float into view, linger for a moment, and then drift out of sight. You do not need to grab them, analyze them, or push them away. Your only job is to remain still and watch them pass. Another helpful image is to see your mind as a clear blue sky, and thoughts as passing clouds. A big, dark cloud of worry might appear. Instead of becoming the cloud and believing its stormy forecast, you simply note, a cloud of worry. A light, wispy cloud of a pleasant memory might drift by. You note, a memory, and you let it go without clinging to it. The most important and powerful thoughts to observe in this way are the ones that begin with I. These are the thoughts that construct our sense of self and are often the source of our deepest suffering. A thought may arise. I am a failure because of what happened at work today. The untrained mind immediately latches onto this. It believes it. It feels the shame, the fear, and begins to gather more evidence to support the story. The mind of a meditator, however, learns to see this thought for what it is. It is not a statement of absolute truth. It is a temporary mental event. You can learn to silently label it. Thinking, a thought about failure has arisen. You are not denying the thought, but you are shifting your relationship to it. You are taking it from the throne of absolute truth and seeing it as a fleeting visitor. The thought I am not good enough is not you. It is a thought. The thought I am anxious is not you. It is a thought. They are electrical impulses and chemical reactions in the brain, as impermanent as a sound, as fleeting as a scent. When you cease to believe every thought that enters your head, you have discovered an unimaginable freedom. The thoughts may still come, but they no longer have the power to define you or to imprison you. Now, let us apply this understanding to the very problems that keep us awake at night. What are these problems, really? A difficulty at work, a conflict in a relationship, a financial pressure. We experience them as heavy, solid, terrifying boulders that we must carry. But what are they actually made of? A problem, when you look at it closely, is not a thing. It is a collection of impermanent thoughts and feelings that we have woven together into a frightening story. Your work problem is composed of memories of past mistakes, anxious thoughts about future outcomes, and unpleasant feelings in your body right now. None of these components are solid or permanent. They are all fleeting events. By constantly thinking about the problem, by ruminating on it, we are the ones who give it solidity. We are the ones who keep the story alive, re-injecting it with fear and importance every time we engage with it. When you learn to sit and watch the individual thoughts that make up the problem arise and pass away, the entire structure begins to soften. The boulder begins to look less like solid rock and more like a bundle of mist. You realize you don't have to solve the entire story tonight. You can simply let go of the thought that is present right now, and then the next one, and the next. The problem dissolves when you stop feeding it with your belief. There is a classic Zen story that speaks directly to this. A university professor, a man famous for his knowledge, went to visit a Zen master to inquire about Zen. As the master began to speak, the professor repeatedly interrupted him to offer his own opinions and display his own understanding. The master stopped talking and began to serve tea. He filled the professor's cup to the brim, and then, without stopping, he continued to pour. Tea overflowed from the cup and ran all over the table. The professor, unable to contain himself, shouted, "It is full, no more will go in." The Zen master calmly replied, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" Our minds, especially at night, are like that overflowing cup. They are filled to the brim with worries, plans, judgments, and self-criticism. There is no room for silence, no space for peace. To empty your cup is the very practice we are doing now. It is to see that all these opinions and worries are just thoughts. By not clinging to them, by not believing them to be the ultimate reality, we allow them to pass. We create space. And in that empty space, wisdom and peace can finally arise. This insight does not stop with our own minds. Finally, widen your awareness to encompass everything. Listen to the sounds around you. The hum of an appliance, the creak of the house settling, a distant car. Each sound emerges from silence, exists for a moment, and disappears back into silence. They are all impermanent. Now, consider the objects in your room, the bed, the walls, the clothes you wear. They seem solid, permanent, but they are all in a slow process of decay and change. Widen your view further to your life itself. Your job, your home, your relationships, your possessions, all are subject to the same universal law. They will all change, they will all end. Even this planet, this solar system, this galaxy, they all arose, they exist for a time, and they will pass away. To see this is not to become nihilistic or depressed. It is to find the ultimate peace. The source of all our stress is the futile attempt to build a permanent home on shifting sands, to grasp onto things that are by their very nature ungraspable. When you deeply, truly accept the impermanent nature of everything, the struggle ceases. You can finally relax. You can let go of the impossible burden of trying to control the uncontrollable. This is the great liberation. The peace that comes before sleep is not a state you achieve by solving all your problems. It is a state you enter by letting go of them. By seeing the impermanence of the body, the impermanence of feelings, the impermanence of thought, and the impermanence of all things, you are free. You are no longer defined by the fleeting contents of your experience. You can finally rest in the vast, open, and silent awareness that lies beneath it all. This awareness was here before your first thought, and it will be here after your last. It is your true home. It is from this place of profound release and stillness that we can now gently conclude our journey. The journey we have undertaken through the watches of the night has been one of turning inward. We have journeyed into the landscape of the body, navigated the shifting weather of our feelings, and sat peacefully by the river of our thoughts. We have discovered a sanctuary of stillness within, a profound peace that arises when we stop struggling and simply allow reality to be as it is. But what happens when the first light of dawn appears at the window? What happens when the alarm clock rings, pulling us from this inner world and thrusting us back into the world of deadlines, traffic, demands, and responsibilities? Is the peace we found merely a temporary anesthetic, a fragile bubble that bursts upon contact with the pressures of the day? Or can it be something more? Can it be a resilient, unwavering light that we carry within us, illuminating our path through the chaos? This is the ultimate purpose of our practice. The final stage of this journey is not another step inward, but a courageous step outward. It is the practice of integration. It is about building a bridge from the silent monastery of our nighttime contemplation to the bustling marketplace of our daily life, ensuring that the wisdom we have uncovered becomes not just an idea, but a lived, breathing reality. The laboratory for this integration is not a special room or a quiet retreat. It is your life, exactly as it is. The practice begins with the first conscious moments of your day. As you prepare your morning coffee or tea, you have a choice. You can perform the task mechanically, your mind already racing ahead to the day's anxieties, or you can transform it into a profound meditation on impermanence. As you hold the cup, feel the warmth in your hands. This warmth is not a static quality. It is a process, a constant dissipating of energy. It is here now, and in a few minutes, it will be gone. As you bring the cup to your lips, notice the aroma. It arises, fills your senses, and vanishes. It cannot be held. When you take a sip, taste the flavor fully. It explodes on your tongue and then fades, leaving only a memory. The entire experience is a symphony of arising and passing away. The same is true for every mundane task. As you wash the dishes, feel the sensation of the warm water on your hands. Notice the sound of the plates. See the soap bubbles form and pop. Each bubble is a perfect, miniature lesson in impermanence. When you walk to your car, feel the sensation of your feet on the ground, each step present, then gone. You are not trying to add anything special to these moments. You are simply bringing the same gentle, non-judgmental awareness you cultivated in the stillness of the night to the movements of the day. By practicing with these small, neutral events, you are training your mind. You are building the muscle of awareness, preparing it for the moments when the stakes are higher and the emotions are stronger. You are learning that your life is not a series of problems to be solved, but a flow of moments to be experienced. And inevitably, the bigger waves will come. You will find yourself stuck in traffic, late for an important meeting. A colleague will say something that feels unjust or critical. You will receive an unexpected bill. In these moments, the untrained mind reacts instantly. The storm of anger, anxiety, or frustration takes over completely. We are hijacked by our emotions, and we immediately reach for that second arrow. But now, you have another choice. The practice of integration is the practice of the sacred pause. The moment you feel the hot flush of anger or the cold grip of fear, you pause, just for a single breath. And in that breath, you turn your awareness inward. You bring the skill you learned in the darkness into the light of day. You acknowledge the feeling without judgment. Anger is present. You feel it in your body, just as you did before sleep. Where is it? A tightness in the jaw, a pounding in the chest, a fire in the stomach. You observe it as pure energy, a powerful but temporary storm passing through the sky of your mind. You do not have to become the storm. You do not have to act on its violent impulse. By observing it, you create a space between the stimulus and your response. In that space lies your freedom and your wisdom. You see that the anger, as intense as it feels, is impermanent. It will pass. From this place of clarity, your actions can be intelligent and compassionate, rather than blind and reactive. You can address the situation from a place of strength, not from a place of being emotionally compromised. This is not about suppressing your feelings. It is about holding them with a wise and spacious attention, so that they no longer control you. Perhaps the most transformative application of this wisdom is in our relationships with others. So much of our suffering in relationships comes from clinging and a resistance to change. We want our loved ones to be predictable, to stay the same, to always meet our expectations. We hold on to a version of them from the past, or project an ideal onto them for the future. And we suffer when their present reality doesn't match our mental image. To integrate the wisdom of impermanence here is to look at the people in your life, your partner, your children, your friends, and see them for what they truly are, flowing, changing rivers of existence, just like you. The person you are speaking with today is not the exact same person they were yesterday. Their thoughts, feelings, and selves are all in flux. Their very presence in your life is not guaranteed. It is a precious, temporary gift. When you understand this on a deep level, your interactions are transformed. You stop taking them for granted. You listen more deeply to their words, knowing that this specific conversation is a unique event that will never be repeated. You cherish the simple moments of connection, seeing them not as mundane, but as miraculous. Your heart softens. You become more forgiving, recognizing that a hurtful word or action was likely the result of their own temporary, internal storm, rather than a permanent statement about their character or their love for you. Fear of loss is transformed into a profound appreciation for the present. Clinging is transformed into compassionate, unconditional love. This is how the practice moves from being a nightly technique for peace into the very fabric of your character. It is not something you do anymore. It is something you are. You begin to walk through your day with a lighter step, no longer carrying the immense burden of trying to make a changing world stand still. You see the beauty in the fleeting nature of a flower, the poignancy in the passing of a season, and the miracle in the simple act of being alive. The peace you discovered in the silence of the night is not a fragile thing that can be shattered by the noise of the day. It is a deep, abiding understanding of the nature of reality itself. It is a portable sanctuary, a source of strength and wisdom that you carry within you, wherever you go. Having built this bridge from the inner world to the outer world, having woven these threads of insight into the tapestry of your life, the journey of active contemplation is complete. We are now ready to rest in the wisdom that has been cultivated, to summarize our journey, and to embrace the freedom that comes from living in harmony with the way things are. We have journeyed far. We have walked through the landscape of the body, sat with the changing weather of our feelings, watched the river of our thoughts, and built a bridge to carry this awareness into the light of day. We have learned to find peace in the heart of change. Now, we arrive at the final vista, the highest peak on this path of inquiry. This is where the practice moves beyond a technique for personal peace and blossoms into a profound, life-altering transformation. It is where the deep, personal understanding of impermanence gives birth to its two most beautiful children, wisdom and compassion. For this final exploration, we ask the most fundamental question of all. If everything I experience, my body, my feelings, my thoughts is constantly changing, a ceaseless flow, then who or what is the I that is experiencing it? The answer to this question is the key that unlocks the final door to freedom. Let us begin this inquiry with gentle curiosity. For our entire lives, we have operated under a core assumption that inside this changing body and mind, there is a permanent, unchanging me, a self, a soul, an ego. This is the entity we seek to protect, the one who feels proud or ashamed, the one we believe will be born and will one day die. But through our contemplation, we have put this assumption to the test. We looked for this solid self in the body, but we only found a collection of changing cells and sensations. We looked for it in our feelings, but we only found fleeting emotional weather. We looked for it in our thoughts, but we only found a parade of temporary mental events. So, where is it? The profound insight that arises from this honest investigation is that this fixed, separate self we have been searching for does not, and has never, existed as a solid thing. This is the teaching of anatta, or non-self. This is not a frightening or nihilistic idea. It does not mean that you do not exist. It means that you do not exist in the way you think you do. You are not a static noun, a fixed entity. You are a dynamic verb. You are a process, a flowing pattern, a constellation of ever-changing physical and mental energies, all arising together in dependence on conditions. You are more like a river than a statue. A river has a name, like the Mississippi, but you cannot point to a single, unchanging Mississippi. It is a constant process of flowing water. In the same way, you have a name, but you are a continuous process of seeing, hearing, feeling, and thinking. The self is a story, a useful convention for navigating the world, but it is not a fundamental truth. The liberation in this is immense. The self that you have spent your life defending, the ego that gets bruised by criticism, that clings to praise, that is terrified of annihilation. This self is seen to be an illusion, a ghost in the machine. When you see a ghost for what it is, it no longer has the power to frighten you. When you see the self for the construct that it is, its power to create suffering through pride, jealousy, fear, and greed begins to dissolve. The fear of death itself loses its sting when you realize that the solid entity you thought was going to die was never really there in the first place. To grasp this intuitively, consider the beautiful metaphor of the wave and the ocean. Imagine a single wave rising from the vastness of the sea. As it rises, it might develop a sense of individual identity. I am a wave, it thinks. It might look around and compare itself to others. I am bigger than that wave, but smaller than that one. I am moving quickly. I am beautiful. It might even feel a sense of pride in its form and power. But then, as it moves toward the shore, it sees other waves crashing and disappearing. A great fear arises. I am going to die. My existence as a wave will soon be over. It clings to its waveness, terrified of its own end. But then, in a moment of profound insight, the wave realizes its true nature. It realizes that its essence is not waveness, but water. It is not separate from the ocean. It is the ocean, expressing itself for a moment as a wave. In that instant, all fear vanishes. How can it die? How can the ocean die by crashing into itself? It is simply changing its form. It was always water, and it will always be water. We are like that wave, identified with our small, temporary form, terrified of our inevitable end. The realization of non-self is the wave awakening to its true nature as the ocean. It is the realization that you are not separate from the totality of life. You are an expression of it. From this profound insight, the second fruit of our practice, compassion, is born automatically and effortlessly. As long as we believe in a solid, separate me, we must also believe in a solid, separate you. This creates a fundamental duality, a barrier between self and other. My happiness is my primary concern, and your happiness is yours. My suffering is a problem to be solved, and your suffering is, ultimately, your own. But when the illusion of the separate self dissolves, this barrier becomes porous and transparent. When you look at another person, you no longer see a fundamentally separate entity. You see another process, another flowing river of body, feelings, and thoughts, just like your own. You see someone who is governed by the same laws of impermanence, who is also seeking happiness and trying to avoid suffering, who is also carrying their own fears and clinging to their own hopes. You recognize your shared condition, your shared vulnerability, your shared nature as expressions of the same ocean of life. This recognition is the birth of true compassion, or karuna. This is not pity, which comes from a place of looking down on someone else's misfortune. This is empathy, a deep resonance with another being. Their joy feels connected to your joy. Their pain feels connected to your pain. It is the heart's natural response to seeing reality clearly. The walls of the ego, which create isolation and loneliness, have crumbled. You are no longer a lonely island, but part of a vast, interconnected continent of being. The desire to help others, to alleviate suffering wherever you see it, is no longer a moral duty or a way to feel good about yourself. It becomes a natural, spontaneous impulse, just as your left hand would automatically help your right hand if it were injured. Why? Because they are both parts of the same body. When we see the truth of non-self, we realize that all of humanity, all of life, is one body. Compassion is the wisdom of the heart that understands this unity. Thus, our journey, which began with the simple, personal desire to find peace from the noisy mind before sleep, has reached its ultimate destination. The path of looking inward has led us to a boundless opening outward. The practice of watching the breath to calm anxiety has blossomed into a profound insight that dismantles the very root of fear. And that insight has, in turn, opened the floodgates of a heart that connects with all beings. This is the complete path of liberation. It is the union of wisdom, panya, and compassion, karuna. It is the realization that true peace for oneself is inseparable from a deep and abiding love for all that lives. You sought a quiet mind, and in the process, you have discovered a boundless heart. You sought freedom from your own suffering, and you have found a deep connection to everything. This is the final fruit of your contemplation, the ultimate treasure discovered in the stillness of the night. We have stood upon the mountaintop. Through our dedicated contemplation, we have glimpsed the profound truths of impermanence, the liberating insight of non-self, and the boundless heart of compassion. It is a breathtaking view, one that promises a final end to suffering and a permanent state of peace. And yet, after every mountaintop experience, there is the journey back down into the valley of our ordinary lives. The alarm clock still rings, the bills still need to be paid, and the mind, with its ancient habits, does not simply surrender overnight. The spiritual path is not a single ascent to a peak, but an ongoing journey, a daily navigation of the inner landscape. A time will come, for all who practice, when the initial inspiration fades, when the view from the summit becomes a distant memory, and the path forward feels overgrown with challenges. This section is a map for that valley. It is a practical guide for the real, moment-to-moment work of sustaining the practice when it is no longer new or easy. It is about learning to work skillfully with the inevitable challenges that arise, the inner weeds known in the Buddhist tradition as the 5 hindrances. These hindrances are not signs of personal failure. They are not evidence that you are bad at meditating. They are universal patterns of the human mind, as predictable and impersonal as the weather. They are guests that will visit every practitioner, and our task is not to fight them, but to learn to greet them with wisdom and mindfulness. The first hindrance is sensory desire. This is the mind's restless craving for pleasure through the 5 senses. It is the pull towards a more interesting thought, a fantasy, a plan. It manifests as the urge to check your phone, the sudden memory of a delicious food, or the elaborate daydream that carries you miles away from the present moment. It is the voice that whispers, "This is boring, let's think about something fun." The second hindrance is ill will or aversion. This is the energy of pushing away, of resistance. It can be as subtle as a slight irritation at a sound outside, or as intense as a burning anger replaying an argument from the day. It is the frustration you feel when your mind won't quiet down, the judgment you direct at yourself for being distracted, or the resentment you hold towards another person. It is the mind contracting, tightening, and declaring, "I don't like this." The third hindrance is sloth and torpor. This is not just physical tiredness, it is a heaviness of the mind, a mental fog. It is the feeling of being half asleep, of your awareness becoming dull and murky. Your posture slumps, your head nods, and the practice loses its sharpness. It is a thick, syrupy energy that drains your motivation and makes even the simplest act of paying attention feel like a monumental effort. The fourth hindrance is restlessness and worry. This is the infamous monkey mind, jumping restlessly from one branch to another. It is the agitated, anxious energy that cannot settle. Your body might feel fidgety, your mind buzzing with 1,000 thoughts. It often manifests as worry about the future, or as its close cousin, regret and guilt about the past. It is the feeling of being unable to land, of being perpetually unsettled. The fifth and final hindrance is skeptical doubt. This is the subtle, whispering voice that undermines the entire practice. Am I doing this right? Is this really working? Maybe this is all a waste of time. Perhaps I'm just not cut out for this. It drains your confidence and erodes your trust in the path, your teacher, and most importantly, in your own ability to awaken. So, what do we do when these uninvited guests appear in the meditation hall of our mind? The untrained instinct is to fight. We try to suppress desire, to argue with our doubt, to force ourselves to be more energetic. This struggle is exhausting and counterproductive. It is like trying to smooth a wrinkled cloth with a hot iron while it's still being crumpled. Fighting a hindrance only gives it more strength. The path of wisdom is to apply the very same mindfulness we have been cultivating. The first step is to recognize and gently name the hindrance. When you feel the mind becoming foggy, you simply note, this is sloth and torpor. When you feel the agitated buzzing of anxiety, you note, this is restlessness. This simple act of naming removes you from being identified with the state and turns you into the observer of it. The second step is to accept its presence, just for this moment. This is a radical act. You drop the resistance. You allow the restlessness to be there, without needing it to go away. You give the doubt space to exist. You are not condoning it or agreeing with it, but you are ceasing the inner war against it. In doing so, you stop feeding it with your energy. The third step is to investigate it with curiosity. What is this sloth really? What is its physical texture? Is it a pressure in the head? A heaviness in the limbs? What is the actual, raw sensation of restlessness? Is it a vibration in the chest? A rapid flow of thoughts? By turning towards the hindrance with this friendly curiosity, you see it for what it is, an impersonal, impermanent flow of energy. And you discover that, like all other phenomena, when you watch it without feeding it, it will eventually change and pass away. Alongside this mindful acceptance, we can also cultivate joyful effort, or virya. True spiritual effort is not a grim, joyless struggle. It is a bright, balanced, and resilient energy that comes from finding delight in the path itself. It is the joyful diligence of a gardener tending their plants. The gardener knows that weeds will grow. They don't despair or become angry at the weeds. They simply understand that gardening involves the patient, persistent, and gentle work of removing what is unhelpful and nurturing what is beautiful. So too, we can learn gentle ways to nurture our garden. If ill will is present, we can introduce the antidote of loving kindness, intentionally wishing ourselves and others well, which softens the hard ground of anger. If sloth and torpor descend, we can mindfully rouse energy by straightening our posture, opening our eyes, or walking for a few minutes. To counter the grip of doubt, we can recall our own direct experience, remembering a moment, however brief, when this practice brought a taste of peace. We trust what we have seen for ourselves. This is the ongoing path. It is not a romantic quest for uninterrupted bliss, but a mature and compassionate practice of learning to navigate the full spectrum of the human experience. The hindrances are not problems on the path. They are the path. Each time you meet a hindrance with mindfulness instead of reactivity, you are deepening your wisdom. Each time you gently let go of a distraction and return to the breath, you are strengthening your heart. This is the quiet, heroic work that happens in the valleys, far from the dramatic mountaintop vistas. It is the steady, patient, and joyful effort that transforms this practice from a temporary escape into an unwavering foundation for a life of freedom. Following our candid discussion of the challenges on the path of 5 hindrances that can cloud the mind, it is essential to turn our attention to the light. The practice of mindfulness is not merely about clearing away what is unskillful. It is, more importantly, about actively cultivating what is beautiful, radiant, and liberating. A garden is not defined by the absence of weeds, but by the presence of flourishing flowers. In the same way, a liberated mind is not merely empty of hindrances, but is full of positive, brilliant qualities. The Buddha described these qualities as the 7 factors of enlightenment. These are not abstract ideals or distant goals to be achieved in a future life. They are innate potentials within our own minds, a set of interconnected qualities that, when cultivated together, create a mind that is balanced, clear, powerful, and free. Think of them as a constellation of stars. When they shine together, they illuminate the entire night sky of our consciousness. The first and foundational factor, the one upon which all others depend, is mindfulness, sati. We have spoken of this extensively, but its importance cannot be overstated. Here, it functions as the master key, the essential ingredient that activates all other positive states. Mindfulness is the clear, unwavering light of attention that remembers to be present. It sees without judging. It knows without elaborating. It is the simple, honest awareness of what is happening right now. It is the feeling of the breath in the body, the sound of a bird outside the window, the presence of an emotion in the heart. Without mindfulness, we cannot even begin to see the hindrances, let alone cultivate their antidotes. It is the sentinel at the gate of the mind, discerning what is arising and what is passing away. It is the steady hand that guides us back, again and again, from the wilderness of distraction to the home base of the present moment. Cultivating the other 6 factors is impossible without first strengthening this fundamental capacity to be present. When mindfulness is established, it naturally gives rise to the second factor, investigation, Dhamma, Vikaya. This is not dry, intellectual analysis or philosophical debate. It is an active, engaged, and curious quality of mind. It is the spirit of a scientist, looking deeply into the nature of experience itself. When a feeling of sadness arises, the investigative mind doesn't just passively note sadness. It asks, with genuine interest, what is this? What are its raw, physical sensations? Is it heavy or light? Does it have a temperature? Is it constant, or does it vibrate and change? When a thought appears, it looks at it with the same curiosity. What is the texture of this thought? Where did it come from, and where does it go? This quality of wise investigation is the direct antidote to the hindrance of sloth and torpor. It cuts through mental fog with a sharp, bright blade of inquiry. It also dissolves skeptical doubt, because instead of relying on theories, you are discovering the truth of impermanence and non-self directly within your own experience. It infuses the practice with life and prevents it from becoming a dull, mechanical routine. This engaged curiosity naturally fuels the third factor, energy or effort, virya. This is the same joyful effort we discussed when working with hindrances, but here we see it as an essential component of awakening. When you are genuinely curious and engaged in investigating your own mind, a balanced and persistent energy arises automatically. It is not the tense, white-knuckled striving of the ego trying to achieve something. It is the joyful, tireless energy of an artist absorbed in their work or a child lost in play. It is the steady persistence that keeps you on the cushion when you feel lazy, the gentle determination that brings you back to the breath for the 1000th time. This energy is born of interest, not of willpower. It is the force that propels you along the path, a tireless engine powered by the fuel of your own discoveries. Mindfulness points the way, investigation explores the territory, and energy walks the path. As these first three factors work together, a wonderful thing begins to happen. As the mind is gathered, focused, and free from the coarse outer layers of distraction, a natural sense of well-being arises. This is the fourth factor, joy or rapture, piti. This is not the ordinary happiness that depends on external circumstances. It is a profound, non-sensual joy that is born from within. It can manifest in many ways, as a thrilling feeling of lightness in the body, as goosebumps or waves of pleasant energy, or as a deep sense of gladness and wonder. It is a sign that the mind is being purified of its coarser hindrances, like a muddy pool of water that, as the sediment settles, begins to feel a sense of clarity and lightness. This joy is a powerful motivator. It shows us, in a very direct way, that the path of letting go leads not to deprivation, but to a deeper and more reliable happiness than sensory pleasures can ever provide. It gives us the encouragement to continue, showing us a taste of the freedom that awaits. While joy can be exhilarating, its energetic quality eventually subsides into its calmer, more peaceful cousin, the fifth factor, tranquility, passaddhi. After the thrilling waves of joy, the waters of the mind and body become exceptionally still. This is tranquility. It is a deep, abiding sense of calm that permeates your entire being. The body feels completely at ease, free from its usual aches and tensions. The mind, no longer agitated or restless, becomes serene, pliable, and peaceful. It is like the deep sigh of relief after a period of intense exertion. If joy is the excitement of arriving at a beautiful oasis, tranquility is the profound rest you experience while lying in its cool shade. This state is the perfect antidote to the hindrance of restlessness and worry. The mind has found a place of deep rest and is no longer compelled to jump from one thought to another. From this foundation of profound tranquility, the mind gains a new power. This is the sixth factor, concentration, samadhi. This is the ability of the mind to become unified, to collect all of its scattered energies and rest them upon a single object of attention without wavering. It is the culmination of the calming aspects of the path. The mind is no longer a flickering candle in the wind, but a steady, bright, and powerful laser beam. This one-pointedness of mind is not a tense state of holding on. It is an effortless resting, born from the preceding factors of joy and calm. A mind established in samadhi is clear, stable, and immensely powerful. It is with this kind of focused awareness that the deepest insights into the nature of reality can arise, as it can penetrate the surface of things and see their true nature without distortion. And finally, arising from this deep stability and clarity is the seventh and culminating factor, the crown jewel of the enlightened mind: equanimity, upekkha. This is a state of perfect balance, of profound and unshakable peace. A mind imbued with equanimity is like a great mountain, unmoved by the fiercest winds that blow from all directions. It experiences pleasure without clinging, and pain without aversion. It hears praise without becoming inflated, and blame without becoming crushed. It observes gain and loss, success and failure, happiness and sorrow, the inevitable eight worldly winds, with a vast, spacious, and silent acceptance. This is not a cold indifference or an emotional detachment. It is the highest form of love, a radiant peace that embraces all of life, exactly as it is. It is the fruit of having seen so deeply into the impermanent, impersonal nature of all things that you are no longer pushed and pulled by them. You rest in the center of the wheel, watching it turn with a wise and compassionate heart. These seven factors of enlightenment, from the simple act of remembering the present moment to the profound balance of equanimity, form a holistic and interconnected system. They are the inherent treasures of your own mind. The practice is not about creating them from scratch, but about creating the conditions, clearing away the hindrances that allow these natural, radiant qualities to shine forth, illuminating your life with wisdom, peace, and a compassionate heart. Having explored the brilliant qualities of the awakened mind, the seven factors of enlightenment, we now turn to a complementary and profoundly essential practice. The path to freedom is often described as having two wings: the wing of wisdom, which sees reality clearly, and the wing of compassion, which embraces that reality with boundless love. We have spent much time cultivating the wing of wisdom through the practice of insight. Now, we will directly and intentionally cultivate the wing of the heart. This is the practice of the Brahmavihara, often translated as the four divine abodes or the four immeasurables. They are called immeasurable because, when fully developed, these qualities of heart extend without limit, breaking down all barriers between self and other, and transforming our inner world into a sanctuary of kindness, care, and unshakable peace. These are not merely pleasant emotions. They are powerful, active meditations that reshape our habitual responses and open our hearts to the entirety of existence. The first and foundational of these divine abodes is loving kindness, metta. This is the sincere, heartfelt wish for the well-being and happiness of all beings, starting with oneself. It is the direct and potent antidote to the hindrances of ill will, anger, resentment, and hatred. Metta is a warmth, a friendliness, a gentle acceptance that we learn to cultivate intentionally. The practice traditionally begins with the one person we often find it hardest to love unconditionally: ourselves. We cannot offer a drink from an empty well, so we must first fill our own hearts with kindness. You can silently repeat phrases such as, "May I be happy," "May I be healthy," "May I be safe," "May I live with ease." We are not affirming that these things are true, but planting the seeds of this benevolent wish in the soil of our own heart. We hold ourselves with the same tenderness we would offer a beloved child. Once a sense of warmth for oneself is established, the practice expands outward in circles. Next, you bring to mind a benefactor or a deeply respected teacher, and you offer them the same wishes. May you be happy. May you be healthy. Then, you call to mind a cherished friend or family member, someone you love easily, and you radiate these feelings of loving kindness towards them, letting your heart overflow with genuine care. The next, more challenging step is to bring to mind a neutral person, someone you see regularly but have no strong feelings about, like a cashier at a store or a person you pass on the street. By directing metta towards them, you begin to break down the walls of indifference that separate us from most of humanity. The practice then moves to its most difficult stage, bringing to mind a difficult person, someone with whom you have conflict or who has caused you pain. The aim is not to condone their harmful actions, but to see that they, too, are a suffering being who wishes to be happy, and to extend a basic wish for their well-being from a place of strength and compassion. Finally, the practice expands to encompass all beings in all directions, friends, enemies, strangers, animals, all beings in all realms. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from enmity and danger. Metta is the gentle rain that softens the hard, dry ground of the heart, preparing it for all other growth. The second divine abode is compassion, karuna. If metta is the wish for all beings to be happy, karuna is the wish for all beings to be free from suffering. It is the heart's natural response to witnessing pain. It is often described as the trembling of the heart in the face of suffering. This is not pity, which can have a quality of looking down on another. True compassion is a recognition of our shared vulnerability. It understands, this suffering could be my suffering. This person's pain is not separate from the pain that exists in the world, the pain that I too have known. To cultivate compassion, we can bring to mind a being who is clearly suffering, someone who is sick, grieving, or in distress. We allow ourselves to feel the reality of their pain without being overwhelmed by it, and we hold them in our heart with a sincere wish. May you be free from this suffering. May you find peace. We can then extend this wish to ourselves for our own suffering, and then radiate it outward to all who are experiencing pain, hardship, or despair. Karuna is the active, engaged quality of the heart that does not turn away from the reality of pain, but moves towards it with a courageous and tender desire to help and to heal. It is the antechamber to wisdom, for it is in understanding suffering that we most deeply seek the path to its end. The third immeasurable quality is sympathetic joy, mudita. This is the practice of rejoicing in the happiness, success, and good fortune of others. In many ways, this can be the most challenging of the four abodes for the modern mind. Our culture often trains us in comparison and competition, which leads to the poison of jealousy and envy. When we hear of another's success, a subtle part of us can feel diminished or left behind. Mudita is the direct antidote to this poison. It is the conscious and joyful celebration of another's well-being. The practice begins by bringing to mind a friend or loved one who is experiencing happiness. Perhaps they've gotten a new job, fallen in love, or are simply having a good day. Instead of feeling a pang of comparison, we intentionally share in their joy. We feel happy for them. We say to ourselves, how wonderful for them. May their happiness and good fortune continue. This practice generates a light, uplifted state of mind. It frees us from the self-imposed prison of envy and allows us to participate in the vast ocean of happiness that exists in the world. It is a recognition that happiness is not a limited resource. Another person's success does not take away from our own potential. By celebrating their joy, we expand our own capacity for it. Mudita is the heart's ability to delight in the light wherever it shines. The fourth and final divine abode is equanimity, upekkha. This is the quality that balances and perfects the other three. Equanimity is a vast, spacious, and non-discriminating acceptance. It is a deep understanding that all beings, including ourselves, are the owners of their actions and the heirs of their karma. While we can offer our loving kindness, compassion, and sympathetic joy, we cannot ultimately control the lives and choices of others. Equanimity is the wisdom that knows when to act and when to let go. It is a love that is free from the clinging of attachment and the anxiety of expectation. Upekkha is the steady heart that can love a difficult person without needing them to change, that can feel compassion for a suffering person without being destroyed by their pain, and that can rejoice in a happy person's fortune without any trace of clinging. It is the peace that comes from embracing reality as it is, with all of its beauty and its sorrow. It is a profound trust in the unfolding of life. In practice, we can cultivate it by reflecting on the vastness of the universe and the countless beings within it, all following their own paths, and extending a peaceful, steady heart to all of them, wishing them well on their journey without trying to control it. These four divine abodes, when practiced together, create a heart that is truly boundless. They are the pillars of a truly resilient and beautiful mind. Metta is the warmth of the sun, karuna is the healing rain, mudita is the clear sky celebrating the light, and upekkha is the vast, stable earth that holds it all with unshakable peace. They are the essential complement to the piercing insights of wisdom, ensuring that our journey to freedom is not a cold, intellectual exercise, but a full and passionate embrace of all that it means to be alive. Having cultivated the radiant qualities of the heart, the four divine abodhis, we must now turn our attention to the foundational law that governs our entire existence, the very engine of our experience. Why do we experience happiness at one moment and sorrow at the next? Why are some lives filled with ease and others with hardship? The wisdom traditions of the world have offered many answers, but the Buddha's teaching on this subject was radical, profound, and deeply empowering. It is the teaching of karma, a word often misunderstood in the modern world. This is not a doctrine of fate or inescapable destiny. It is not the judgment of a cosmic deity dispensing rewards and punishments. Karma is something far more intimate, scientific, and immediate. The Buddha declared that karma is cetana, a Pali word that translates to volition, intention, or will. It is the mental impulse, the intention behind every action, that is the seed of our future. This understanding places the full power and responsibility for our lives directly into our own hands. We are not the victims of a random universe, nor the subjects of a divine king. We are the creators of our world, the heirs of our own actions. To understand how we create our reality, we must see the three gateways through which karmic seeds are planted. These are the three doors of action: the body, speech, and the mind. The most obvious of these is the door of the body. When we perform a physical act, we are creating karma, an act of harming another being, of taking what is not freely given, or of engaging in sensual misconduct plants a seed of suffering. Conversely, an act of protecting life, of practicing generosity and giving freely, or of respecting the physical well-being of others plants a seed of happiness and ease. These actions have visible consequences in the world, but their true karmic weight is carried by the intention that drives them. A doctor cutting a patient with a scalpel to heal them, and a mugger cutting a victim with a knife to rob them, are performing similar physical actions, but the intentions are worlds apart, and thus, the karmic results are vastly different. The second door is that of speech. Our words have immense power to create connection or division, to heal or to harm. Lying, speaking words that are divisive, and create discord among others, using harsh, abusive, or insulting language, and engaging in idle gossip that wastes our own time and harms the reputation of others. These are all forms of unskillful speech that create negative karma, leading to mistrust, conflict, and a lack of harmony in our lives. The skillful counterparts are the cornerstones of a noble life, speaking the truth, speaking words that unite people and create harmony, using language that is gentle, kind, and soothing, and speaking words that are meaningful, timely, and beneficial. When our speech becomes a tool for truth and kindness, we plant seeds of trust, friendship, and mutual respect. The third door, and the most fundamental of all, is the door of the mind. This is the root of all karma, for every action of body and speech is first conceived in the mind as an intention. One can lie on a couch, perfectly still and silent, and still be creating powerful karma through thought alone. The mind that is filled with covetousness, constantly desiring what others have. The mind that is filled with ill will, rehearsing arguments and wishing harm upon others. And the mind that is filled with wrong views, clinging to beliefs that deny the laws of cause and effect and the potential for awakening. This mind is a factory for suffering. Conversely, the mind that cultivates thoughts of renunciation and generosity, the mind that actively develops loving kindness and goodwill for all, and the mind that seeks to understand right view the nature of impermanence, suffering, and non-selfish, a garden planting the seeds for profound peace and happiness. This is why our entire practice of meditation is so crucial. It is the direct work of purifying the mind at its source, before unskillful intentions can even ripen into harmful words or deeds. The Buddha framed this entire process not in the language of good and evil, which can be laden with judgment and guilt, but in the practical, pragmatic terms of skillful kusala and unskillful akusala. An unskillful action is not a sin for which you will be punished. It is like planting a poisonous seed. The poison is in the seed itself, and the fruit will inevitably be poisonous, causing suffering to whoever eats it, namely, yourself and others. What makes a seed unskillful? It is any intention rooted in what are known as the three poisons, or the three unwholesome roots. Greed, the mindset of I want, of grasping, clinging, and addiction. Hatred or aversion, the mindset of I don't want, of pushing away, rejecting and destroying. And delusion or ignorance, the fundamental blindness that does not see reality as it is, that believes in a permanent self and misunderstands the law of karma. Any action of body, speech, or mind that springs from these three roots is, by definition, unskillful and will lead to suffering. A skillful action, therefore, is any action rooted in the opposites of these poisons. These are the three wholesome roots: non-greed, which manifests as generosity, letting go, and contentment; non-hatred, which manifests as loving, kindness, compassion, patience, and forgiveness; and non-delusion, which is wisdom, the clear seeing of reality as it is. Any action springing from these wholesome roots is, by definition, skillful and will lead to happiness, peace, and well-being for oneself and all those affected by it. This framework is incredibly empowering. It provides a clear and compassionate ethical compass. When considering an action, we can look into our own hearts and ask, what is the root of this intention? Is it coming from a place of wanting, of anger, of confusion? Or is it coming from a place of generosity, of love, of clarity? This understanding brings us to the very heart of why our meditation practice leads to freedom. We are, at this very moment, experiencing the ripening of karmic seeds planted in the past. The circumstances of our birth, our innate talents and challenges, these are the fruits of a history of actions we cannot change. However, what we can change, what we have complete power over, is what we do right now. In every moment, there is an experience, a feeling, a thought, a sight, a sound. And in every moment, an impulse arises to react to that experience, often based on our old, habitual patterns rooted in the three poisons. The practice of mindfulness creates a space, a pause between the experience and the reaction. In that precious, timeless space, we have a choice. We can see the impulse to speak an angry word, and instead choose silence or a kind word. We can see the arising of a greedy thought, and instead cultivate a feeling of contentment. Each time we do this, we are actively breaking the chain of habitual suffering and planting a new, skillful seed. We are consciously reshaping our own future. The ultimate goal of the path is to purify the mind so completely of the three poisons that our actions no longer create any binding karma at all. The actions of an awakened being are perfectly spontaneous and wise, creating no new causes for future suffering. This is the end of the cycle, the attainment of true and lasting freedom. After understanding the natural law of karma, the intricate dance of intention, action, and result, a crucial question arises. How does one live in a way that consistently plants skillful seeds and refrains from planting unskillful ones? Is there a map, a practical guide for navigating the complexities of life in a way that leads directly towards freedom from suffering? The Buddha's answer to this question is perhaps his most famous and enduring teaching, the Noble Eightfold Path. This is the fourth of the Four Noble Truths, the path that leads to the cessation of suffering. It is not a set of commandments to be blindly followed, nor is it a linear sequence of steps to be completed one after another. Rather, it is a holistic and interconnected program of training, with 8 factors that are to be developed simultaneously, each one supporting and deepening the others. It is often called the middle way, as it steers a wise course between the extremes of worldly indulgence in sensual pleasure and the harsh, self-punishing practices of extreme asceticism. The path can be grouped into 3 essential trainings: the training in wisdom, the training in ethical conduct, and the training in mental discipline. Together, they form a complete blueprint for an awakened life. The foundation of the entire path rests upon the training in wisdom, panya, which consists of the first 2 path factors. Without wisdom, any action we take, no matter how well-intentioned, is likely to be misguided. The first factor is right view or right understanding, samadhitta. This is the map for the journey. It is the clear seeing of reality as it is, free from the distortions of delusion and ignorance. At its most basic level, right view is the understanding of the law of karma, knowledge that our actions have consequences and that skillful actions lead to happiness, while unskillful ones lead to suffering. On a deeper level, it is the direct, experiential understanding of the Four Noble Truths, the truth of suffering. its cause, craving, its cessation, and the path to its cessation, this very eightfold path. At its most profound level, right view is the penetrating insight into the three characteristics of all existence: that all things are impermanent, Anicca, unsatisfactory or stressful dukkha, and devoid of a permanent, independent self, Anatta. Without this correct view, we are simply wandering in the dark. Right view provides the context and the purpose for all the other 7 factors. The second factor in the wisdom training is right intention, or right thought, Samma Sankappa. If right view is the map, right intention is the compass that orients our heart in the correct direction. It is the active resolve to align our inner life with our understanding. The Buddha described 3 facets of right intention. First is the intention of renunciation, which is the resolve to let go of the clinging, craving, and grasping that fuels the cycle of suffering. It is a turning away from the endless pursuit of fleeting sensory pleasures and towards the lasting peace of inner freedom. Second is the intention of goodwill, which is the sincere wish for the well-being of all living things. It is the active cultivation of a heart free from anger, resentment, and ill will, the very essence of the metta practice. Third is the intention of harmlessness, or compassion. This is the resolve to cause no harm, whether physical or emotional, to any living being, including oneself. It is the heart that trembles at the sight of suffering and actively seeks to alleviate it. These 3 intentions of letting go, of loving kindness, and of compassion are the noble thoughts that purify the mind and set the emotional tone for the entire journey. Wisdom must be grounded in how we conduct ourselves in the world. This is the training in ethical conduct, Sila, which purifies our actions of body and speech so that our mind can find the peace necessary for deep meditation. It consists of 3 path factors. The third factor is right speech, Samma Vacha. This is the commitment to use our words skillfully. It means abstaining from the 4 main types of harmful speech: lying and deception, slanderous or divisive speech that turns people against each other, harsh or abusive language that hurts and demeans others, and idle chatter or gossip that wastes time and clouds the mind. Instead, we cultivate speech that is truthful, kind, harmonious, and beneficial. The fourth factor is right action, Samma Kammanta. This involves aligning our physical actions with our noble intentions. It is based on abstaining from 3 primary unskillful acts: harming or taking the life of any sentient being, taking that which is not freely given, or stealing, and engaging in sexual misconduct that causes harm to oneself or others. By adhering to these basic precepts, we create a life free from remorse, guilt, and fear, which are major obstacles to mental calm. The fifth factor, right livelihood, Samma Ajiva, extends this ethical conduct to our professional lives. It is the commitment to earn a living in a way that does not cause harm, and if possible, brings benefit to the world. The Buddha specifically named 5 types of livelihood to be avoided: dealing in weapons, in living beings, including slavery and raising animals for slaughter, in meat, in intoxicants, and in poisons. In a modern context, this principle encourages us to engage in work that is honest, ethical, and does not exploit others or the environment. It ensures that the way we spend the majority of our waking hours is a support for our spiritual path, rather than a contradiction of it. A life of ethical integrity in speech, action, and livelihood is the firm ground upon which the mind can be trained. The final training is in mental discipline, samadhi, which focuses directly on the practice of meditation itself. This training includes the last 3 factors of the path. The sixth factor is right effort, samavayama. This is the balanced and joyful energy we bring to our inner work. The Buddha described this as a 4-fold effort: the effort to prevent unskillful, negative states from arising, the effort to abandon such states if they have already arisen, the effort to cultivate skillful, positive states that have not yet arisen, and the effort to maintain and perfect those positive states that are already present. It is the wise application of energy, steering the mind away from the hindrances and towards the factors of enlightenment. The 7th factor is right mindfulness, sammasati. This is the heart of the meditative practice. It is the moment-to-moment, non-judgmental awareness of our experience, typically focused on 4 foundations: mindfulness of the body, breath, posture, sensations; mindfulness of feelings pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Mindfulness of the mind, the presence of greed, anger, calm, etc. And mindfulness of mental objects or phenomena, observing experience through categories like the 5 hindrances or the 7 factors of enlightenment. It is through right mindfulness that we develop the insights of right view. The 8th and final factor is right concentration, samasamadhi. As right mindfulness is practiced with right effort, the mind naturally becomes more collected and unified, leading to the state of right concentration. This is the ability to fix the mind on a single object, allowing it to become profoundly calm, stable, and lucid. This one-pointedness is not a state of tension, but one of joyful absorption, a state free from the disturbances of the ordinary mind. It is this concentrated mind that has the power and precision to see into the deepest nature of reality, uprooting the deepest defilements and bringing about final liberation. The Noble Eightfold Path is a perfect system. Wisdom guides our ethics. Ethics provide the calm foundation for mental discipline, and mental discipline sharpens the mind to achieve deeper wisdom. It is a beautiful, upward spiral, a complete guide for anyone who wishes to walk the middle way from suffering to peace. Having charted the course for liberation with the Noble Eightfold Path, we now venture into the very heart of the Buddha's insight, into the intricate mechanics of suffering itself. The path shows us what to do, but a deeper question remains. How does suffering actually work? What is the precise, moment-to-moment chain reaction that takes us from a state of neutral awareness to one of entanglement and pain? The Buddha's answer to this is the doctrine of dependent origination, paticcasamuppada, a teaching so profound that he is said to have hesitated to teach it, fearing it would be too subtle for the world to grasp. This is not a metaphysical story about the creation of the universe. It is a psychological blueprint of the engine of samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and suffering. It reveals, with startling precision, the 12 causal links that chain us to the wheel of becoming. To understand these links is to understand how to break the chain and step off the wheel entirely. The entire process is driven by a single, fundamental root. The first link in the chain, ignorance, avijja. This is not a lack of factual information, but a deep, pervasive blindness to the Four Noble Truths and the true nature of reality. It is the delusion that believes fleeting phenomena can bring lasting happiness, that there is a solid, permanent self to be found within our changing experience, and that our actions have no meaningful consequences. It is the darkness of not knowing, and from this darkness, all else follows. Because of this fundamental ignorance, we engage in the second link, volitional formations, sankhara. These are the karmic actions of body, speech, and mind that we perform. Driven by our delusion, we grasp and we push away. We create intentions rooted in greed and hatred, thereby planting the karmic seeds that will shape our future. These first two links represent the causes set in motion in our past. These past causes inevitably ripen into our present experience, which is described by the next 5 links. The karmic energy of past formations conditions the arising of the third link, consciousness, vijnana. This is the basic capacity for awareness, the stream of knowing that flows from moment to moment. But this consciousness cannot exist in a vacuum. It is inextricably bound up with the fourth link, mind and matter, nama, rupa. Rupa is the physical body, the material form. Nama refers to the non-physical aspects of our being: feeling, perception, intention, contact, and attention. Together, nama rupa is the complete psychophysical organism, the sentient being that we take ourselves to be. This organism is not inert. It is equipped with the fifth link, the 6 sense bases, sayatana. These are the 6 doors through which we experience the world: the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and the mind itself, which cognizes thoughts and ideas. The world now makes its appearance. The 6th link, contact, phassa, occurs when a sense base meets its corresponding object, and consciousness arises to register it. For example, the eye, sense base, sees a red apple, object, and eye consciousness arises. This meeting of the 3 is contact. It happens constantly, hundreds of times a second. Every single moment of contact immediately and automatically gives rise to the 7th and most pivotal link, feeling, vedana. Every experience, no matter how subtle, is instantly tagged with a feeling tone. It is either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. You see a beautiful sunset, and a pleasant feeling arises. You hear a harsh criticism, and an unpleasant feeling arises. You feel the pressure of your chair, and a neutral feeling arises. It is here, at this crucial juncture of feeling, that our past conditioning meets the present moment, and our future is decided. Up to this point, the process has been the inevitable unfolding of past causes. We are simply experiencing the results, but what happens next is what forges the chains for the future. This is where we react, and our reaction is the eighth link, craving, tanha. Conditioned by our root ignorance, when a pleasant feeling arises, we crave for it to continue. We want more of it. When an unpleasant feeling arises, we crave for it to cease. We want to get away from it. This thirst, this insatiable desire for pleasure and for the absence of pain, is what the Buddha identified as the direct and immediate cause of suffering. Let us trace this with an example. You are walking down the street, and the contact of your nose with scent particles gives rise to the pleasant feeling of smelling a bakery. Instantly, the mind, conditioned by ignorance, reacts with craving. I want that. This craving quickly intensifies into the ninth link, clinging or grasping, upadana. Craving is the initial thirst. Clinging is the act of reaching out and grabbing on. We cling to sensual pleasures, desperate to prolong them. We cling to our views and opinions, defending them as if they were our very identity. We cling to rules and rituals, believing they alone will save us. And most profoundly, we cling to the doctrine of a self, solidifying the belief that there is a permanent me who is having this experience. Following our bakery example, the craving for the pleasant smell intensifies. The mind clings to the idea, I need a pastry. I will be happy if I get one. This clinging to the desired object and the self who will enjoy it directly leads to the 10th link, becoming, bhava. This is the powerful forward momentum created by our clinging. We create a new identity, a new state of existence in our minds. We are no longer just a person walking down the street. We are now a person about to eat a pastry. We have set a new karmic trajectory in motion, ensuring the cycle continues. This process of becoming inevitably leads to the future results, the final two links of the chain. The 11th link is birth, jati. On the grand scale, this refers to literal rebirth into a new life, conditioned by the karmic force of our previous existence. But on a moment-to-moment scale, the becoming of deciding to get the pastry leads to the birth of the action. You walk into the bakery, you buy the pastry, you take a bite. A new experience is born. And what is the fate of everything that is born? The 12th and final link, aging and death, jara marana, which brings with it the whole host of life's sorrows, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. The pastry is eaten, and the pleasure dies. The moment is gone. Now you might crave another one, or feel disappointment that it's over. The entire cycle, from ignorance to feeling to craving to a new birth and a new death, is complete. And it has already planted the seeds for its own repetition. To see this chain is to see the prison, but it is also to see the key. The Buddha taught that if any link in the chain is broken, the entire process of suffering ceases. Where is the weakest link? While we can't change our past karma, we can change our present reaction. The link between feeling, 7, and craving, 8, is the point of liberation. This is where our practice of mindfulness, as taught in the Noble Eightfold Path, does its work. Through mindfulness, we can experience a pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral feeling without the automatic, ignorant reaction of craving. We can see a pleasant feeling arise and simply observe its impermanent nature without needing to grasp it. We can see an unpleasant feeling arise and allow it to be there without needing to push it away. When we cut the chain at this point, when feeling is not followed by craving, then craving does not intensify into clinging. Without clinging, there is no becoming. Without becoming, there is no new birth. And without birth, there is no aging, death, and sorrow. By understanding this profound process, we see that freedom is not found by changing the world, but by changing the chain of reactions within our own hearts. Having illuminated the intricate causal chain of dependent origination, we see precisely how suffering arises and ceases. This intellectual understanding, however, must be paired with a direct, experiential method for observing this process in real time. We need a training ground, a field of practice where we can watch these links unfold and learn to break the chain. The Buddha provided this exact training ground in what is arguably his most important discourse on meditation, the Satipatthana Sutta, which lays out the practice of the four foundations of mindfulness. He called this the direct path, or the one-way path to the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation, for the disappearance of pain and grief, for the attainment of the true way, and for the realization of nibbana. This is not a new practice, but a systematic and comprehensive map of the territories we have already begun to explore. It organizes our entire psychophysical experience into four distinct, yet interwoven domains for contemplation. The first foundation, and the very anchor of the entire practice, is the contemplation of the body, kayanupassana. We begin here because the body is tangible, present, and undeniable. It is our grounding in the here and now, pulling us out of the chaotic world of abstract thought. The primary practice within this foundation is mindfulness of breathing. We simply rest our awareness on the natural, unforced rhythm of the breath, noticing the sensations of the air entering and leaving the body. This calms the mind, gathers our scattered attention, and provides a stable home base to which we can always return. From this base, we expand our awareness to include the four postures: walking, standing, sitting, and lying down. The practice is simply to know, without judgment, what the body is doing. When walking, I know I am walking. When sitting, I know I am sitting. This simple recognition brings our mindfulness practice off the cushion and integrates it into every moment of our lives, transforming mundane activities into opportunities for awareness. Further, this foundation encourages us to cultivate clear comprehension in all of our daily activities. This means being fully aware of the body's movements when we are eating, dressing, bending, or stretching. It is a moment-to-moment intimacy with our physical reality. For those seeking to dismantle the deep-seated identification with the body, the Buddha taught more advanced contemplations. One is the reflection on the 32 parts of the body, mentally dissecting it into its components: hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, and so on. Another is to see the body as composed of the four great elements: the earth element, hardness, solidity; the water element, fluidity, cohesion; the fire element, heat, energy; and the air element, movement, vibration. These practices are not morbid. Their purpose is to break down our conceptual attachment to the body as a beautiful, solid, unified me. We see it instead as an impersonal, composite, and ever-changing natural process. The final contemplation in this foundation is to reflect on the body's inevitable decay after death, a powerful meditation on impermanence that severs our clinging to this physical form at its root. The second foundation is the contemplation of feelings, Vedananupassana. As we have seen in our exploration of dependent origination, feeling is the critical link where our reaction determines our future. This foundation trains us to pay bare attention to the feeling tones that arise from every single moment of contact. We learn to simply know there is a pleasant feeling, there is an unpleasant feeling, or there is a neutral feeling. The key is to observe these feelings without identifying with them and without launching into the habitual reactions of craving or aversion. We see the pleasant feeling arise, and we watch it pass away without trying to hold on to it. We see the unpleasant feeling arise, and we watch it pass away without trying to push it away. We are not our feelings. They are impersonal, fleeting energetic events in the mind and body. By cultivating this detached observation, we are cutting the chain of dependent origination right at its weakest point. We are teaching the mind that it does not need to be a slave to its fleeting pleasures and pains. This is the direct cultivation of inner freedom and emotional resilience. The third foundation is the contemplation of the mind or consciousness, Cittanupassana. Here, our mindfulness turns its gaze upon itself. We are not looking at the content of thought, but at the overall state or quality of the mind in this moment. Is the mind colored by greed or desire? We simply know the mind has lust. Is the mind free from greed? We know the mind is free from lust. Is the mind contracted with anger and hatred? We know The mind has anger. Is it free from anger? We know the mind is free from anger. We learn to recognize the presence of delusion or clarity, of distraction or concentration, of a contracted mind or an expanded mind, of a surpassed mind or an unsurpassed mind. We are not judging these states as good or bad. We are simply turning on the light in the room of our own mind and seeing what is there. This practice develops profound self-awareness and honesty. We see that these mental states are just that, states. They are impermanent conditions that arise due to causes and will pass away when the causes change. We stop identifying with them, realizing I am not an angry person. There is simply the presence of anger in the mind at this moment. This depersonalizes our inner struggles and empowers us to cultivate the states we wish to encourage. The fourth and most encompassing foundation is the contemplation of dhammas, or mental objects. Dhammanupassana. Dhammas here refers to the ultimate constituents of reality as categorized by the Buddha's teachings. This foundation is where our mindfulness practice matures into profound wisdom. It is where we begin to observe our direct experience through the very frameworks the Buddha laid out. In this contemplation, we observe the arising and passing of the five hindrances, seeing for ourselves how they obstruct the mind. We contemplate our experience in terms of the five aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, seeing directly how we cling to these bundles of phenomena and mistake them for a solid self, and how liberation comes from letting go of this identification. We observe the six sense bases and their objects, understanding how the fetters of attachment arise at the point of contact. Most powerfully, we begin to observe the presence and absence of the seven factors of enlightenment within our own minds, learning how to cultivate them. Finally, we contemplate our direct, moment-to-moment experience in terms of the Four Noble Truths. We see a moment of craving and know, this is the origin of suffering. We experience its cessation and know, this is the cessation of suffering. We apply mindfulness and know, this is the path. The fourth foundation is where all the threads of the teaching come together, where intellectual understanding is transformed into a direct, living realization of the Dhamma in the laboratory of our own heart and mind. As we commit to walking the four foundations of mindfulness, treading the direct path to awakening, we begin to notice that our inner world is not always a cooperative environment. Sometimes the mind is inspired and energetic. Other times it is doubtful and lethargic. Just as a skilled musician must learn to tune their instrument, a practitioner must learn to tune the mind, cultivating the specific inner qualities that support the journey. The Buddha identified 5 key inner strengths, or spiritual faculties, that are the very engines of our progress. These are the 5 indriyas. The word indriya means faculty, power, or controlling principle. These 5 qualities, when developed and brought into balance, govern our practice and lead it to fruition. They are not exotic states, but potentials within each of us that can be intentionally cultivated. These faculties are faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. To understand them, and especially to understand how they balance one another, is to learn how to skillfully navigate the subtle currents of the mind. The first of these faculties is faith, saddha. In the context of this path, faith is not blind belief or the acceptance of dogma without question. It is, rather, a deep and clarifying confidence, a trusting conviction that empowers us to act. It is the confidence that gets you to step onto a bridge you have good reason to believe is sturdy. You don't know with absolute certainty that it will hold you until you've crossed, but you have enough confidence to take the first step. In the beginning, this faith is directed outward. It is faith in the Buddha as an awakened being, a proof that liberation is humanly possible. It is faith in the Dhamma, the teachings, as a clear and reliable map that points the way to that same awakening. And it is faith in the Sangha, the community of noble practitioners, as trustworthy guides and companions on the path. This initial faith inspires us to begin practicing. As we walk the path ourselves, however, this faith becomes internalized. We get a small taste of peace from our meditation, a moment of clarity, a slight lessening of our anger. This direct experience becomes the basis for a new kind of faith, a growing confidence in the path because we have seen it work, and, most importantly, a growing faith in our own capacity to walk it to the end. Faith is the antidote to the hindrance of skeptical doubt. It is the light that illuminates the path ahead when we are in a dark valley, giving us the courage to continue even when the final destination is not yet in sight. Faith, however, remains a passive wish unless it is energized. This is where the second faculty, energy or effort, virya, comes in. This is the inner powerhouse, the courageous and persistent application of our will towards the goal. Faith points the way, but energy walks the path. This is not a tense, aggressive, or frantic effort. It is not about gritting our teeth and forcing results. It is a balanced and joyful application of diligence, like the steady, flowing current of a powerful river. It is the energy that gets us onto the meditation cushion even when we are tired. It is the energy that continuously applies the four right efforts, preventing unskillful thoughts, abandoning them when they arise, cultivating skillful thoughts, and maintaining them. Without energy, our practice becomes lethargic and stagnant. A person with great faith but little energy may have beautiful ideals, but will never make tangible progress. They know where the treasure is but will not dig for it. Energy is what translates our noble intentions into lived reality. It is the fire that fuels the entire spiritual journey. At the very heart of these faculties, serving as the master regulator and charioteer, is the third faculty, mindfulness, sati. We have met mindfulness as the first factor of enlightenment and as the core of the four foundations. Here, as a spiritual faculty, its role is to know, to remember, and to balance. It is the quality of awareness that remembers the practice, that keeps the object of meditation in view, and does not forget the path's instructions. Crucially, mindfulness is the faculty that oversees the state of the other four faculties. It knows, is there enough energy right now, or is the mind becoming dull? Is faith strong, or is doubt creeping in? Is the mind becoming concentrated, or is it scattered? Is wisdom present? Mindfulness is the clear, non-judgmental knowing of what is happening in the mind from moment to moment. It is this quality that allows us to perform the delicate art of tuning our practice. Without mindfulness, energy can easily become agitation and restlessness. Without mindfulness, faith can devolve into blind belief or fanaticism. Mindfulness is the steady, clear-eyed pilot that keeps the entire enterprise on course. As mindfulness and energy work together harmoniously, they give rise to the fourth faculty, concentration, samadhi. This is the faculty of mental unification, the ability to collect the scattered energies of the mind and have them rest steadily and calmly on a single point. It is the direct antidote to the hindrance of restlessness and the wandering mind. When the mind is concentrated, it is like a still, clear lake, perfectly reflecting the sky above without distortion. In contrast, an unconcentrated mind is like a lake whipped into a frenzy by the wind, its surface choppy and its reflections broken and unclear. A concentrated mind is powerful. It is free from the inner chatter and friction that drains so much of our mental energy. This state of calm stability is not only peaceful and pleasant in itself, but it is the necessary platform for the arising of deep insight. Just as a surgeon needs a steady hand to perform a delicate operation, the mind needs the steadiness of concentration to penetrate the subtle layers of reality. The final and culminating faculty is wisdom, panya. This is the faculty of discernment, the ability to see things as they truly are. It is the direct, experiential seeing of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non-self. While faith is the confidence that the treasure exists, wisdom is the act of unearthing it and holding it in your own hand. Wisdom is what ultimately cuts through the root of all suffering, ignorance. It arises from a mind that has been made clear and steady through concentration, and present and aware through mindfulness. It is the moment of aha, when you see for yourself that a painful emotion is just a fleeting, impersonal energy, or when you look for the thinker of a thought and find nothing there. Wisdom is not the accumulation of knowledge from books. It is the silent, irrefutable understanding that dawns in a quiet and attentive mind. The genius of this teaching lies in the call for balance. The Buddha compared the five faculties to the tuning of a lute. If the strings are too loose, too little energy, they will not produce a sound. If they are too tight, too much energy, they will snap. They must be tuned just right. Specifically, A balance must be maintained between faith and wisdom, and between energy and concentration. If faith is too strong and wisdom is weak, it can lead to devotional excess and blind belief. If wisdom, in the form of intellectual cleverness, is too strong without the grounding of faith, it can lead to cynical doubt, arrogance, and an inability to commit to anything. Similarly, if energy is much stronger than concentration, the mind will become agitated and restless, unable to settle. If concentration is too strong without a balancing energy, the mind will sink into a dull, sleepy, and unproductive trance. Mindfulness, once again, is the master musician who listens to the sounds being produced and skillfully tightens or loosens the strings as needed, ensuring that all five faculties are working together in a beautiful, resonant harmony that produces the music of awakening. As we continue to tune the instrument of the mind, developing the five spiritual faculties, a natural maturation occurs. The qualities we have been diligently cultivating, faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom, begin to take on a new character. They evolve from emerging faculties that require conscious effort to maintain into robust, indomitable inner strengths. These are known as the five powers, balas. The term bala means power, force, or strength, and it signifies that these five qualities have become so well developed that they are unshakable by their opposites. If the five faculties are the diligent ministers learning to govern a kingdom, the five powers are the wise and powerful rulers who cannot be overthrown. They are the inner pillars that make the mind truly resilient, capable of withstanding the storms of life and the onslaught of the hindrances without being disturbed. Developing these powers is the transition from practicing the path to truly embodying it. The first of these is the power of faith, sadabala. This is the faculty of faith brought to a state of unwavering conviction. At the faculty stage, faith is a confident trust that motivates us to practice despite our doubts. As a power, faith becomes a deep-seated certainty, an inner light that cannot be extinguished by the darkness of skeptical doubt. This power is not born from blind belief, but is forged in the fires of direct experience. The practitioner has tasted, for themselves, the peace that comes from letting go. They have seen with their own eyes the truth of impermanence in their own mind and body. They have experienced the release that comes from a moment of non-clinging. This first-hand knowledge transforms hopeful trust into an unshakable conviction in the three jewels, in the reality of the Buddha's awakening, in the efficacy of the Dhamma as the path, and in the wisdom of the Sangha as guides. A mind endowed with the power of faith is no longer plagued by questions like, is this path truly worth it? Or am I capable of this? It possesses a quiet, profound certainty that provides the courage to face any obstacle on the journey, secure in the knowledge that the path leads to true freedom. The second power is the power of energy, virya bala. This is the faculty of effort transformed into a relentless and joyful momentum. When energy is still a developing faculty, we must constantly encourage it, struggling against the heavy pull of sloth and torpor. We have good days and bad days. Sometimes we feel inspired, other times lethargic. But when the power of energy is established, our diligence becomes a force of nature. It is unshakable by laziness. The practitioner has developed a wholesome habit of continuous effort that no longer feels like a struggle. Instead, there is a buoyant, forward-moving quality to the mind, a natural inclination towards wholesome activity and away from indolence. It is the energy of a great river that flows ceaselessly towards the sea, overcoming obstacles not with frantic force, but with steady, irresistible pressure. This power ensures that the practice does not stagnate or fall into complacency. It is the tireless heart of the awakened life, constantly moving towards greater clarity and compassion. The third, and arguably central, power is the power of mindfulness, satibala. This is the faculty of mindfulness made robust, continuous, and unshakable by forgetfulness and distraction. In the early stages of practice, mindfulness is a flickering flame we are constantly trying to protect and rekindle. Our mind is repeatedly carried away by thoughts, and we must make a conscious effort to remember to come back to the present moment. As the power of mindfulness develops, this remembering becomes almost second nature. The awareness is bright, stable, and panoramic. While the mind may still note thoughts and sensations, it is no longer hijacked by them. Mindfulness has become a strong, ever-present guardian at the doors of the senses. It sees experiences arise and pass without getting lost in them. This is not a tense hypervigilance, but a relaxed, open, and continuous lucidity. This power is what allows us to remain centered and clear in the midst of a chaotic day. An insult may arise, but the power of mindfulness sees it as a mere sound and a fleeting feeling, preventing the habitual reaction of anger. A strong desire may arise, but mindfulness sees it as an impersonal energy, preventing the automatic act of grasping. The power of mindfulness is our inner anchor, keeping us steady and present regardless of the shifting tides of life. The fourth power is the power of concentration, samadhi bala. This is the faculty of concentration fortified to the point where it is unshakable by its primary opponents, sensory desire and restlessness. When concentration is merely a faculty, the mind is still easily pulled away by an enticing sight, a pleasant memory, or a worrying thought. The practitioner must work diligently to coax the mind back to its object of meditation. But as the power of concentration matures, the mind develops a profound stability and inner peace. It can enter states of deep calm with ease and remain there, undisturbed by the chatter of the senses or the agitation of the mind. This power provides a deep inner refuge, a sanctuary of stillness we can return to at any time. The allure of fleeting sensory pleasures pales in comparison to the rich, fulfilling peace of a concentrated mind. The anxiety and restlessness that plague ordinary consciousness are calmed. This unshakable stability is not an end in itself. It is the vital platform upon which the final power can operate most effectively. It creates the clear and silent laboratory for the work of wisdom. The fifth and culminating power is the power of wisdom, panya bala. This is the faculty of wisdom brought to its ultimate fruition, a penetrating insight that is unshakable by its fundamental opposite, the deep-seated root of all suffering, ignorance, avijja. At the faculty stage, wisdom provides us with moments of insight, flashes of clarity, where we see the truth of impermanence or non-self. These moments are powerful, but the old habits of delusion and self-identification tend to reassert themselves. When the power of wisdom is fully developed, however, the seeing is no longer a temporary glimpse. It is a stable, abiding view. The understanding of the selfless, interconnected, and impermanent nature of reality becomes the mind's default operating system. The practitioner no longer needs to remind themselves that phenomena are empty of a solid self. They see it directly, continuously. The illusion of being a separate, vulnerable ego has been seen through so thoroughly and so consistently that it can no longer command belief. This is the power that cuts the fetters of attachment at their very root. It is the sword of discernment that liberates the mind from the ancient prison of its own mistaken identity. It is this power, supported by all the others, that opens the door to nibbana, the final, unshakable peace. These five powers, born from the patient cultivation of the five faculties, are the true measure of inner strength, the guarantors of a mind that is resilient, radiant, and free. Having fortified the mind with the five powers, making it unshakable in the face of life's challenges, we are now prepared to use this newfound stability to perform the most subtle and liberating work on the path. This is the work of deconstruction. It is the work of taking apart the very machine of our own self to see, with radical clarity, that there is no ghost in it. We have spoken at length about the doctrine of non-self, Anatta. But how do we investigate this directly? The Buddha provided a precise analytical framework for this very purpose, a teaching known as the five aggregates of clinging, Panca Upadana Khandha. This teaching is a comprehensive and exhaustive map of a sentient being. The Buddha declared that everything we could possibly identify with as me or mine falls into one of these five categories, or aggregates. The word khandha means heap, bundle, or aggregate. The problem, the Buddha taught, is not the existence of these five heaps of phenomena, but our clinging, upadana, to them, our mistaken identification with them as a solid, continuous self. To investigate the five aggregates is to turn the powerful lens of our mindful, concentrated attention onto our own experience, and to see for ourselves that within these five bundles of changing processes, no permanent, independent self can be found. The first aggregate, and the most obvious component of our being, is form or matter, rupa. This aggregate includes our physical body and all material phenomena. It is the hardware of our existence. This includes the four great elements that compose it: the earth element, representing solidity, like our bones and flesh; the water element, representing cohesion and fluidity, like our blood and bodily fluids; the fire element, representing temperature and energy, like our metabolism and body heat; and the air element, representing movement and vibration, like our breath and the coursing of energy. It also includes the five physical sense organs: the eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body, and their corresponding objects in the external world. Our investigation begins here, with this tangible form we so intimately identify with. We ask the question, is this body me? Is this body mine? Through our contemplation, we see its true nature. We see that it is impermanent. It was born, it grows, it ages, it gets sick, and it will surely die. We see that it is unsatisfactory. It is subject to pain, discomfort, and disease, and it never provides the lasting security we crave. And most importantly, we see that it is not self. It follows its own natural laws, regardless of our wishes. We cannot command our body not to age or to be free from illness. It is an impersonal biological process. When we see this clearly, our obsessive clinging to the body as our identity begins to unravel. We can learn to care for it as a precious vehicle, without mistaking the vehicle for the driver. The second aggregate is feeling or sensation, vedana. Arising from the contact between our sense organs and the world, every single experience is accompanied by a feeling tone. This is the raw, preconceptual coloring of experience as either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. A gentle breeze is pleasant. A harsh word is unpleasant. The feeling of the floor beneath our feet is neutral. This aggregate is the primary driver of our reactive behavior. We spend our entire lives chasing pleasant feelings and running away from unpleasant ones. The investigation here is to ask, are these fleeting feelings me? Are they mine? Through our mindful attention, we observe the constant, torrential flow of feelings. A pleasant feeling arises, we feel it, and in the very next moment, it is gone. An unpleasant feeling appears. We feel its sting, and it too vanishes, replaced by something else. They are as unreliable and ephemeral as bubbles in a stream. To base a sense of self on something so fickle and transient is to build a house upon the sand. When we learn to observe feelings as impersonal, energetic weather patterns passing through our awareness, we sever the link between feeling and craving. We are no longer compelled to react to every feeling, and we find a deep peace that is independent of whether our current experience is pleasant or painful. The third aggregate is perception, sanya. This is the mental faculty that recognizes, identifies, and gives a conceptual label to our experience. When light hits the eye and a feeling arises, it is perception that says a red car or a beautiful tree. When a sound hits the ear, it is perception that recognizes it as music or the voice of a friend. Perception creates our mental map of the world. It organizes the raw data of the senses into a coherent, navigable reality. It operates on memory and past conditioning. The investigation is to ask, are these perceptions, these labels and mental images, me? Are they mine? We come to see that perception is also a conditioned, impermanent process. The label tree is not the actual, living tree. It is a mental concept. Our perceptions can be, and often are, distorted by our moods, biases, and past experiences. Two people can look at the same event and perceive it in completely different ways. To identify with this faculty of labeling is to mistake the map for the territory. By seeing the conditioned and unreliable nature of perception, we learn to hold our views and interpretations more lightly, recognizing them as mental constructs rather than absolute truth. The fourth aggregate is perhaps the most complex and the one we most strongly identify with as our personality. It is mental formations or volitional activities, sankhara. This heap includes a vast array of mental states, but its defining characteristic is volition or intention. It is the karmically active dimension of the mind. It includes all our thoughts, desires, aversions, habits, beliefs, opinions, judgments, and character traits. It is the voice in our head that plans, worries, and comments on everything. It is the force of habit that makes us reach for a cigarette or speak a harsh word. Because this aggregate contains our character and personality, we are deeply convinced that this is me. But the investigation continues. Are these thoughts, these habits, these opinions me? Are they mine? Through sustained mindfulness, we witness the truth. Thoughts arise without our bidding and disappear on their own. Our moods are notoriously changeable. Our cherished opinions can shift with new information. All these so-called personality traits are merely conditioned patterns, habits reinforced over time. They are not a solid monolithic self. By seeing our thoughts as just thoughts and our habits as just habits, we can begin to disidentify from them. We are no longer a slave to our conditioning. We can choose which mental formations to cultivate and which to let go of. The fifth and final aggregate is consciousness, vijnana. This is the faculty of bare knowing, the fundamental awareness that arises when a sense organ meets its object. There is eye consciousness, which simply knows seeing. There is ear consciousness, which knows hearing. There is mind consciousness, which knows a thought or an idea. We often mistake this awareness for a continuous, singular self or soul that is looking out from behind our eyes, the permanent witness to our experiences. The final investigation is to ask, is this consciousness me? Is it mine? We look closely and see that consciousness itself is not a monolithic entity. It is a flickering, moment-to-moment process that is completely dependent on conditions. Eye consciousness cannot arise without an eye and a visible object. Ear consciousness cannot arise without an ear and a sound. It is not a singular, independent consciousness, but a series of discrete moments of consciousness, arising and passing away with every sense impression. It has no more solidity than the flicker of a flame. Through this systematic deconstruction, we have searched for a self in our body, our feelings, our perceptions, our thoughts, and our consciousness, and we have found nothing but a collection of 5 interdependent, impermanent, and impersonal processes. The self we have been searching for is a mirage, a cognitive illusion created by the rapid interplay of these 5 aggregates. The suffering we experience comes from the burden of clinging to these 5 heaps, claiming them as me and defending them as mine. The path to liberation, then, is not to destroy these aggregates, but to see them clearly for what they are. In that clear seeing, the clinging, the grasping, the identification, the upadana naturally falls away. We put down the heavy burden we have been carrying for so long, and in that release, we find a profound and unshakable peace. Having taken apart the perceived self into the 5 aggregates and found no solid core, we now turn the lens of our investigation outward, or rather, we turn it toward the very process by which an outward world even appears to us. How do we know anything at all? Through what channels does all experience, every sight, sound, thought, and feeling arise? The Buddha's answer is both simple and profoundly complete. The framework of the 6 sense bases, often called the 6 sense doors. This teaching asserts that our entire known universe, everything we could ever call the world or reality, is experienced through 6 and only 6 gateways. There is no secret back door. To understand this framework is to understand the precise mechanism by which we construct our world from moment to moment, and to see the exact point where suffering is created. The practice, then, becomes one of guarding these 6 gates not by shutting them, but by stationing the clear, calm guard of mindfulness to observe everything that passes through. Let us first explore the 5 gateways that correspond to our physical body. The first is the eye door. The eye, a photosensitive organ, is the internal sense base. Its corresponding external objects are forms, colors, shapes, light, and shadow. When the eye is functioning and a form is present in its field, eye consciousness arises. This meeting of eye, form, and consciousness is what we call seeing. This seeing immediately gives rise to a feeling pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. You see a beautiful sunset, and a pleasant feeling arises. You see a disturbing image of violence, and an unpleasant feeling arises. You see a neutral gray wall, and a neutral feeling arises. The practice of guarding this gate is to be mindfully aware of this entire process. We see the beautiful sunset and note the pleasant feeling. but we watch it without developing craving or clinging, understanding its impermanent nature. We see the disturbing image and note the unpleasant feeling, but we watch it without developing aversion or hatred, understanding that it too shall pass. We simply know, seeing. The second gateway is the ear door. The ear is the internal sense base, and its objects are sounds. When the ear meets a sound, be it a melody, a harsh noise, a kind word, or a criticism, mere consciousness arises, and we experience hearing. Instantly, a feeling follows. The sound of praise generates a pleasant feeling. The sound of a drill generates an unpleasant feeling. The ambient hum of a room generates a neutral feeling. Here too, the mindful guard is stationed. We hear the praise, but we don't become inflated with pride or cling to the words. We hear the criticism, but we don't become crushed by despair or burn with anger. We see the feeling that arises from the sound as just a feeling, an impersonal vibration in our field of awareness. We learn to let sounds be just sounds, without weaving them into elaborate stories about ourselves. We simply know, hearing. The third, fourth, and fifth gateways function in precisely the same way. At the nose door, the nose meets an odor, giving rise to smelling and an associated feeling. The scent of a rose is pleasant. The smell of decay is unpleasant. At the tongue door, the tongue meets a taste, giving rise to tasting and its feeling. The sweetness of fruit is pleasant. The bitterness of spoiled food is unpleasant. At the body door, the tangible surface of our body meets tactile sensations, giving rise to physical feeling. The warmth of a blanket is pleasant. The pain of a sharp corner is unpleasant. The pressure of clothes on the skin is often neutral. For each of these 5 physical gates, the practice is identical. It is to intercept the process with mindfulness after the feeling has arisen, but before the habitual reaction of craving or aversion takes hold. This is a moment-to-moment training in deconditioning our most deeply ingrained habits. We learn to experience the full range of sensory input without being a slave to it. We become the masters of our own perceptual house, rather than being dragged from room to room by every sight and sound. The sixth sense door is the most subtle, the most powerful, and the one where we spend most of our time. This is the mind door. The internal sense base here is the mind, mano, itself, our cognitive faculty. Its corresponding external objects are mental objects, dhammas. This category includes everything that can be known without the 5 physical senses: thoughts, memories, ideas, plans, fantasies, emotions, concepts, opinions, and all the mental states we have previously discussed, like the 5 hindrances and the 7 factors of enlightenment. When a thought arises, it is an object at the mind door, known by mind consciousness. This knowing of a thought also generates a feeling. A happy memory brings a pleasant feeling. A worrying thought brings an unpleasant feeling. A random, stray thought might bring a neutral feeling. This sixth door is where our inner world is fabricated. It is where we endlessly replay the past and rehearse the future. It is where our stories about ourselves and the world are born and sustained. Guarding this sixth gate is the very heart of meditative practice. An anxious thought about the future may appear at the mind door. The untrained mind immediately grasps it, identifies with it, and believes its story. This creates an unpleasant feeling, which leads to the craving for the anxiety to go away, which only creates more anxious thoughts, a vicious cycle. The mindful practitioner, however, learns to stand guard. The anxious thought appears. It is seen simply as a mental object. The unpleasant feeling of anxiety is noted as just a feeling. There is a recognition. An anxious thought has arisen. An unpleasant feeling is present. By seeing it clearly, we do not have to buy into its narrative. We can let the thought be just a thought, a cloud passing through the sky of the mind. We do not have to become the anxiety. This is the ultimate application of our practice. Whether the stimulus is an external sight or an internal thought, the principle is the same. See the contact, note the feeling, and let go of the reaction. The Buddha once declared that the all is simply these 6 internal sense bases and 6 external sense bases. Outside of this framework, there is nothing that can be known or experienced. Our entire universe, our entire reality, is constructed from moment to moment at these 6 gates. This is a truly liberating insight. It means that the problem is not out there in the world. It is not in the difficult person, the stressful job, or the painful situation. The problem, the origin of all our suffering, is generated right here in our own mind, at the point where a feeling born of sense contact is met with craving and clinging due to a lack of mindfulness. Therefore, the cessation of suffering is also not to be found by manipulating the external world. Liberation is found right here, by bringing wisdom and mindfulness to these six sense doors. When we can see a sight, hear a sound, or think a thought without the automatic reaction of greed, hatred, or delusion, the chain of dependent origination is broken. The world of suffering, which is built on this chain of reactions, ceases. The practice of guarding the sense doors is how we stop building our own prison, moment by moment, and instead begin to experience the boundless freedom that is our true nature. Our journey inward has taken us through the intricate machinery of the mind. We have explored the five aggregates that constitute our being, and the six sense doors through which our world arises. We have learned to watch these processes with a mind fortified by the five powers. Now, we must ask, what is it that we are meant to see with this newfound clarity? What is the fundamental nature of all these phenomena we are observing? The Buddha taught that when the mind is sufficiently quiet and sharp, it begins to discern three universal characteristics that are stamped upon all of conditioned existence, from the smallest thought to the largest galaxy. These are the three marks of existence, tilakkhana. They are not doctrines to be believed, but truths to be seen directly in the laboratory of our own experience. To see them clearly and consistently is the very definition of wisdom, the insight that cuts through all delusion and leads to complete liberation. These three marks are impermanence, Anicca, unsatisfactoriness or suffering, dukkha, and non-self, anatta. The first and most accessible of these marks is impermanence, Anicca. This is the truth that all things that come into being are subject to change and cessation. Nothing is static. Everything is in a constant state of flux. On a gross, conventional level, this is easy to observe. We see the seasons change, day turn to night, and our own bodies age over time. We see relationships begin and end, fortunes rise and fall. But the practice of insight meditation attunes us to a much more subtle and immediate level of impermanence. As we sit in silence, we watch the breath. Each in-breath arises, sustains for a moment, and ceases, giving way to an out-breath, which does the same. It is a constant, flowing river of change. We turn our attention to the body and notice a landscape of shifting sensations. An itch appears on its own and vanishes on its own. A feeling of warmth gives way to coolness. A point of pressure eases. We listen to sounds, and we hear them emerge from silence, linger for a moment, and fade back into silence. Most powerfully, we watch our own minds and see a torrential, unending stream of thoughts, feelings, and memories, each one flickering into existence for a split second before being replaced by the next. The profound suffering in our lives comes not from the fact of change itself, but from our ignorance of it. We live in a state of delusion, acting as if things are permanent. We try to build a solid, secure fortress of happiness on the constantly shifting sands of experience. We cling to pleasant moments, to youth, to health, to relationships, to our possessions, desperately trying to freeze them in time. And so, we are inevitably met with disappointment, grief, and despair when they, by their very nature, change and pass away. The practice of contemplating Anicca is not about becoming morbid or nihilistic. It is about aligning our perception with reality. It is about learning to appreciate the beauty of the present moment without clinging to it. It is about developing the flexibility and resilience to flow with the river of life, rather than trying to fight its current. By seeing the constant arising and passing of all phenomena, our obsessive grasping naturally begins to relax. As we see the universal nature of impermanence more and more deeply, we begin to understand the second mark, unsatisfactoriness or suffering, dukkha. This is perhaps the most misunderstood of the Buddha's teachings. It is not a blanket declaration that all of life is pain. Rather, it is a subtle and sophisticated analysis of a fundamental tension inherent in conditioned existence. The Buddha described three distinct types of dukkha. The first is the most obvious, dukkha, the suffering of pain. This includes all forms of physical pain, sickness, injury, old age, and death, and all forms of mental pain, grief, sorrow, anger, fear, and despair. This is the overt suffering that all beings seek to avoid. The second type is viparinama dukkha, the suffering inherent in change. This is a more subtle form of suffering. It refers to the stress and anxiety that comes from the fact that our happiness is fragile and conditional. Even when we experience something pleasant, a wonderful meal, a happy relationship, a moment of success, there is an underlying anxiety because we know deep down that it will not last. The pleasure is impermanent. Therefore, the very seed of future pain is embedded within the experience of pleasure itself. We get what we want, and then we suffer from the fear of losing it. Or we lose it, and we suffer from its absence. This reveals that any happiness dependent on changing conditions is, by its very nature, unreliable and ultimately unsatisfactory. The third and most profound type is sankhara dukkha, the suffering of conditioned existence itself. This is the pervasive, background hum of unsatisfactoriness that underlies all experience. Simply because all experience is composed of conditioned phenomena, the five aggregates. Because every part of our being or body, feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness is impermanent, in a constant state of flux, and not under our ultimate control, there is a fundamental instability and friction to being an individual. It is the inherent stress of being a self that is constructed from impersonal, unreliable, and constantly changing processes. It is the existential angst of leaning on things that have no solid core. Seeing this clearly is not a cause for despair. On the contrary, it is profoundly motivating. It makes us turn our hearts towards seeking that which is unconditioned nibbana, true and lasting peace, which lies beyond the reach of these three forms of suffering. The clear seeing of impermanence and unsatisfactoriness leads directly to the realization of the third and culminating mark, non-self, anatta. This is the pinnacle of Buddhist wisdom. The logic is simple and irrefutable. If all the components of our experience, all physical and mental phenomena, are constantly changing, Anicca, and if they are therefore inherently unreliable and ultimately unable to provide lasting happiness, dukkha, then how can any of them be identified as a permanent, stable, and autonomous self? If there were a true self that was the owner of the body, it should be able to command the body. Do not get old, do not get sick. If there were a true self that was the master of the mind, it should be able to command the mind. Be happy always. Do not have anxious thoughts. But as we know from our own experience, we have no such ultimate control. Our body and mind are processes that unfold according to their own conditions and natural laws. When we investigate the five aggregates, as we have done, we are directly investigating anatta. We look at our body and see it as an impersonal process. We look at our feelings and see them as fleeting, conditioned responses. We look at our thoughts and see them as ownerless events appearing in consciousness. We look for the experiencer behind the experience, the thinker behind the thought, the controller of the body, and we find nothing. We find only the interdependent, flowing processes themselves. To realize non-self is to see through the most fundamental illusion that has held us captive for lifetimes. The ego, the sense of I, me, mine, with all its pride, fear, ambition, and insecurity, is seen to be a mental construct, a story we have told ourselves. When this illusion is penetrated, the root of clinging is severed. There is no one left to cling, and nothing to be clung to. This is the ultimate release, the great, unshakable peace. These three marks, seen in succession, this is impermanent. Therefore, it is unsatisfactory. Therefore, it is not selfish, the very heart of insight. It is the wisdom that liberates. Through the lens of our meditative inquiry, we have looked deeply into the fabric of our existence and have seen it to be marked by three universal characteristics. It is impermanent, Anicca, inherently unable to provide lasting satisfaction, dukkha, and devoid of any solid independent self, anatta. Every experience we can possibly have, every thought, every feeling, every atom of our body, falls into this category of being conditioned. That is, it arises due to specific causes and conditions, and it ceases when those causes and conditions change. Seeing this can feel like discovering we are adrift in a vast, relentless ocean of change. A profound question then arises: is there anything else? Is there a shore beyond this ocean? Is there a state of being that is not conditioned, not subject to arising and passing, and therefore free from impermanence, suffering, and the illusion of self? The Buddha's answer was a clear and resounding yes. He called this state Nibbana. This is the ultimate goal of the entire path we have been exploring, the final destination of all our striving, contemplation, and cultivation. The word Nibbana, nirvana in Sanskrit, literally means to extinguish, to quench, or to blow out, as one would blow out a candle flame. This immediately raises the question, what is it that is being extinguished? It is not the self, for we have discovered that no solid self exists to be annihilated. What is extinguished are the three fires that fuel the entire engine of suffering. These are the fires of greed, lobha, hatred, dosa, and delusion, moha. These are the deep-seated defilements of the mind that drive the cycle of craving and clinging. Greed is the fire of wanting more, of insatiable desire. Hatred is the fire of aversion, of anger and rejection. Delusion is the fire of ignorance, the fundamental blindness that misunderstands reality. As long as these fires burn in our hearts, we will continue to create the karma that binds us to the wheel of suffering. Nibbana is the complete and utter extinguishing of these fires. When they are quenched, the mind is no longer burned by the fevers of desire, tormented by the flames of aversion, or lost in the smoke of delusion. What remains is a state of perfect peace, profound clarity, and unshakable freedom. Nibbana is not a place, like a heaven one can travel to after death. It is a state that can be realized right here and now in this very life. Because it is unconditioned, it is beyond our normal concepts, which are all based on the conditioned world of time, space, and causality. Therefore, it is often described in negative terms by stating what it is not. It is the unborn, the unbecome, the unmade, the unconditioned. It is the end of craving, the cessation of suffering, the other shore safely beyond the floods of existence. It is called the deathless because it is a state untouched by the cycle of birth and death. While these descriptions may seem abstract, they all point to a singular reality, a peace so profound and stable that it is utterly independent of the changing circumstances of the world. It is the ultimate security, the final refuge. The journey to this ultimate goal is not typically a single, dramatic leap from total delusion to complete enlightenment. The path is a gradual one, a progressive purification of the mind. The tradition describes this journey as passing through 4 distinct stages of awakening, each one marked by the permanent and irreversible destruction of specific mental fetters, samyoyana, that bind us to the cycle of suffering. The first stage is that of the stream enterer, sotapaddi. This is a monumental achievement, the point of no return on the spiritual path. A stream enterer is one who has had their first direct, world-shaking insight into the nature of the Dhamma. They have seen for themselves, without a doubt, the truth of non-self. At this moment, the first 3 fetters are shattered forever. These are 1. The deep-rooted belief in a permanent personality, or self-sakaya, ditthiti. 2. Skeptical doubt about the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, vicikiccha, which is replaced by the conviction of direct experience. And 3. The attachment to mere rites and rituals as a means of salvation, silabata paramasa, realizing that only the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path leads to liberation. Having entered the stream that flows inevitably to Nibbana, a stream enterer is said to be guaranteed to achieve full awakening within 7 lifetimes at most, and will never again be reborn in a lower realm of suffering. The second stage is that of the once-returner, sakadagami. Having already broken the first 3 fetters, this practitioner has greatly weakened the next 2, which are sensual desire and ill will. Their grossest forms have been attenuated, but subtle forms still remain. As the name suggests, a once-returner, should they not attain the final goal in this life, will be reborn into the human world only one more time before achieving full liberation. Their journey is nearing its end. The third stage is that of the non-returner, anagami. At this stage, the 2 fetters of sensual desire and ill will are completely and utterly destroyed. A non-returner's mind is entirely free from any form of lust or anger. It is a state of incredible peace and purity. Because they are free from these attachments to the sensual world, they will never again be reborn in the human realm or any lower realm. If they do not attain the final goal in this life, they are reborn in a high celestial realm known as the Pura Bodhis, from which they will inevitably realize final nibbana without ever returning to a lower plane of existence. The fourth and final stage is that of the arahant, the worthy one or perfected one. An arahant has completed the journey. They have destroyed all 10 fetters, including the 5 subtle higher fetters that bind one to even the most refined states of existence. Craving for form, realm, existence. Craving for formless, realm, existence. Conceit, the subtle feeling of I am, restlessness, and the last vestiges of ignorance. For the arahant, the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion are completely extinguished without a trace. Their mind is perfectly pure, their heart is boundless with compassion, and their wisdom is complete. They have done what had to be done, laid down the burden, and are entirely free from the cycle of birth and death. Within this context, the tradition speaks of 2 types of nibbana. The state experienced by an arahant while they are still alive is called nibbana with remainder. The fires have been extinguished, so no new karmic fuel is being created. However, the remainder is the body and mind, the 5 aggregates which are the result of past karma. The arahant still lives and breathes, and can still experience physical pain from a sickness or injury. But there is no mental suffering. There is no resistance, no craving, no fear, no clinging. When the arahant's life comes to its natural end, they experience nibbana without remainder, also known as paranibbana. Since no new karma exists to propel the life stream forward, the 5 aggregates dissolve completely, never to arise again. This is not annihilation, because there was no self to be annihilated. It is the final, indescribable cessation of the entire process of conditioned existence. It is the ultimate peace, the final end of all suffering. This is the shore that lies beyond the ocean, the goal to which this entire path of practice leads. Having traversed the path to its ultimate destination, nibbana, and having understood the progressive stages of awakening that lead to the state of the arahant, we arrive at a point of profound stillness. The journey of becoming is complete. The struggle to attain, to achieve, to get somewhere else has ended. So, what remains? What is the quality of a mind that has been fully liberated? The Buddha often referred to himself and other fully awakened beings by a special term, the Tathagata. This profound and poetic title is often translated as the one who has thus gone, or the one who has thus come. It is not a name, but a description of a state of being, a way of moving through the world that is completely free from the fetters of suffering. To understand the meaning of the Tathagata is to understand the lived, breathing experience of enlightenment, the very texture of a mind that abides in perfect harmony with reality. The key to this term lies in the word tatha, which means thus, such, or as it is. The related term, tathata, means thusness or suchness. This points to the core quality of an awakened mind. It sees reality exactly as it is, without adding anything to it, and without subtracting anything from it. The ordinary, unenlightened mind is constantly engaged in a project of manipulation. It encounters a raw experience and immediately overlays it with a thick web of concepts, judgments, memories, fears, and desires. We don't just see a tree. We see a beautiful tree that we wish was in our garden, or an ugly tree that is blocking our view. We don't just feel a neutral sensation in our body. We ignore it because it's boring and doesn't offer pleasure. We don't just experience a painful emotion. We immediately label it as bad and launch into a story about how I am a depressed person or this situation is unfair. This constant process of adding and subtracting, of judging and reacting, is the very source of our inner turmoil. The mind of the Tathagata, however, abides in suchness. It has, through the long cultivation of mindfulness and wisdom, ceased this project of manipulation. It allows experience to be what it is, in its pure, unadorned state. Pain is simply known as pain. Joy is simply known as joy. A thought is simply known as a thought. There is no second arrow. The mind rests in a state of bare, lucid awareness. This is not a state of dull passivity. It is a state of supreme clarity and peace. The energy that was once wasted on resisting reality, on fighting with what is, on wishing things were different, is now completely liberated. This liberated energy manifests as effortless wisdom and spontaneous compassion. The Tathagata sees what is needed in a situation with perfect clarity because their view is not clouded by personal preference or fear. They can respond to the world with perfect appropriateness, not because they are calculating the right move, but because their actions flow naturally from a mind that is in perfect accord with the way things are. The title thus gone, Tathagata, also points to a profound freedom from the psychological construct of time. The ordinary mind is a time-traveling machine, almost never at home in the present moment. It is constantly going into the future, propelled by anxiety, planning, and desire. It rehearses conversations, worries about outcomes, and lives in a state of perpetual anticipation. Or it is constantly coming back from the past, burdened by regret, resentment, and nostalgia. It chews on old grievances and clings to faded memories. We are caught in a relentless cycle of what if and if only, and the spacious reality of the what is almost completely missed. The Tathagata is one who has thus gone beyond this ceaseless coming and going. The past is understood as an empty echo, a memory that has arisen and passed away. It is seen with clarity but is no longer clung to, and so it has no power to create suffering. The future is understood as an unborn potential, but there is no anxious projection into it. The mind does not dwell in fantasies or fears of what might be. Having ceased this mental time travel, the Tathagata is one who has fully thus come, Tathagata, into the present moment. They are completely and utterly here. Their awareness is fully established in the here and now, the only place where life is actually lived. This is the culmination of the practice of mindfulness. To be fully present is to be fully alive. From this ground of pure presence, action arises with a different quality. It is no longer a reaction based on past conditioning or a strategy based on future fear. It is a fresh, spontaneous, and perfectly timed response to the needs of the present moment. This is true freedom, not the freedom to do whatever one wants, but the freedom from the compulsion to react. From this state of abiding in reality as it is, a natural and unshakable confidence arises. In the scriptures, this is often called the lion's roar, Sihanada, of the enlightened ones. This is not the arrogance of the ego, which is always a defense mechanism born of insecurity. This is the profound confidence of one who has seen the truth for themselves and knows it to be true beyond any shadow of a doubt. The Tathagata is fearless, not because they are brave, but because the self that could be harmed has been seen through as an illusion. Who is there to be threatened? What is there to be afraid of when one is no longer identified with the fragile body and the fleeting mind? They are free from anxiety because they are not projecting a self into a future that needs to be controlled. They are free from remorse because they are not clinging to a self in a past that needs to be regretted. Their ethical conduct, sila, is not based on following rules, but flows spontaneously from a purified mind that is incapable of intending harm. Their compassion is not a duty, but a natural resonance with all life, born from the dissolution of the barrier between self and other. They move through the world with a lightness and a grace that is incomprehensible to the burdened mind of the ordinary person. They are in the world, participating in it fully, but they are not of the world. They are utterly unbound by its lures and its threats. The joys and sorrows of the world wash over them like waves over the ocean, but their inner peace, like the ocean's depth, remains undisturbed. The state of the Tathagata is not that of a remote, otherworldly deity. It is the restoration of our own original nature. It is the mind's natural state, when it is unobscured by the clouds of ignorance and defilement. The entire path that we have charted, from the first moment of watching the breath to the deepest insights into the nature of reality, is a journey of return. It is a journey back to this simple, profound, and liberating state of being, a state of abiding peacefully and wisely in the thusness of each unfolding moment. This is the final invitation of the Buddha's teaching, to cease the struggle, to see things as they are, and to come home, finally, to the unshakable peace of the present moment. And so we arrive at the final station of our long and intricate journey through the landscape of the mind. We have explored the terrain of the body, navigated the shifting weather of feelings, and charted the constellations of thought. We have mapped the path, identified the pitfalls, cultivated the necessary strengths, and glimpsed the final, radiant destination of Nibbana. We have even stood in awe before the description of the Tathagata, the fully awakened one who lives in perfect harmony with reality. Having surveyed this vast and profound territory, what is left to do? The final step of any great journey is a moment of reflection, a gesture of gratitude, and a commitment to continue walking. In the Buddhist tradition, this is embodied in the simple and profound act of taking refuge in the three jewels. This is not an act of blind submission or a request for external salvation. It is a conscious alignment of one's life, a setting of the heart's compass toward that which is most true, reliable, and worthy of our deepest aspiration. It is the act that transforms the path from a solitary intellectual study into a living, breathing, and supported spiritual quest. The first of these precious jewels is the Buddha. To take refuge in the Buddha is, on one level, an expression of profound gratitude and respect for the historical figure, Siddhartha Gautama. He was the pioneer, the trailblazing scientist of the mind who, through his own relentless effort and courageous inquiry, rediscovered this ancient path to liberation and, out of immense compassion, chose to teach it to the world. We take refuge in him as the supreme guide, the one who drew the map that we now have the privilege to follow. His life serves as the ultimate proof that awakening is not a myth, but a human potential. He was a man, not a god, and this makes his achievement all the more inspiring. It tells us that this path is not beyond our reach. On a deeper level, however, to take refuge in the Buddha is to take refuge in the quality of Buddhahood itself, the potential for awakening that exists within our own hearts. It is the recognition of our own Buddha nature. It is an act of faith, not in an external person, but in the luminous, pure, and wise nature of our own consciousness that lies buried beneath the debris of our conditioning. By taking refuge in the Buddha, we are making a commitment to our own highest potential. We are saying, I too have the capacity to awaken. I too can be free from suffering. I trust in the seed of wisdom that lies dormant within me. This refuge provides us with unwavering inspiration. When the path becomes difficult and doubt arises, we remember the example of the Buddha, and we find the strength to continue, knowing that the journey's end is not just a possibility, but a promise. The second jewel is the Dhamma. This word has multiple layers of meaning. On one level, taking refuge in the Dhamma means placing our trust in the teachings of the Buddha. It is a commitment to the path he laid out, the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path, the understanding of dependent origination, and all the other skillful means we have explored. We take refuge in these teachings as a reliable and coherent guide, a set of instructions that, when followed diligently, leads to the promised result. It is the map drawn by the great guide. We commit to studying this map, to reflecting upon it, and most importantly, to putting it into practice in our own lives to verify its truth for ourselves. On a much deeper level, to take refuge in the Dhamma is to take refuge in the ultimate, universal law of reality itself. The Dhamma is not just the spoken words of the Buddha, it is the way things are. It is the law of cause and effect, karma. It is the truth of impermanence, of the interconnectedness of all things. It is the nature of consciousness. The teachings are merely a description of this fundamental reality. To take refuge in the Dhamma, then, is to commit to living in harmony with the truth. It is the profound intention to stop fighting with reality, to stop resisting the law of change, to stop acting in ways that go against the natural flow of cause and effect. It is a vow of honesty, be honest with ourselves about the nature of our minds, and to align our lives with that truth. The Dhamma is the path itself, the very ground upon which we walk, and taking refuge in it is the commitment to keep walking with our eyes wide open. The third and final jewel is the Sangha. This too has two levels of meaning. The first is the Arya Sangha, or the noble community of all those beings throughout history who have attained one of the four stages of awakening. These are the stream enterers, once returners, non-returners, and arahants. They are the living proof that the Dhamma is not just a beautiful theory, but a practical path that leads to real, verifiable liberation. They are our elder brothers and sisters on the path, our role models and inspirations. Their lives and their attainment give us the confidence that we, too, can achieve the same goal, We take refuge in their wisdom and their example. More practically for us, taking refuge in the Sangha also means taking refuge in the conventional community of fellow practitioners. It is an acknowledgement of a simple and profound truth. We cannot do this alone. The spiritual path is difficult, and our own delusions are cunning. We need the support, encouragement, and friendship of others who share our aspirations. This is the importance of Kalyana Mittata, or spiritual friendship. A true spiritual friend is someone who can reflect our own practice back to us, who can challenge our ego when it becomes inflated, who can inspire us when we feel discouraged, and with whom we can share the joys and sorrows of the path. This community can be monastic, or it can be a group of lay practitioners who meet to meditate and study together. By taking refuge in the Sangha, we acknowledge our interdependence. We step out of the isolation of our own minds and join a caravan of fellow travelers, all helping each other navigate the long journey through the desert of samsara towards the cool, clear waters of Nibbana. To go for refuge to the three jewels is not a one-time declaration, but a daily reorientation of the heart. It is the act of reminding ourselves, again and again, what is truly valuable and where true safety lies. The world offers us fleeting and unreliable refuges: wealth, status, relationships, pleasure. We take refuge in these things, and they inevitably let us down because they are all impermanent. Taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha is to place our trust in the unshakable. It is to place our trust in the potential for our own awakening, in the truth of the path, and in the power of spiritual community. It infuses our solitary practice with a sense of connection, gratitude, and history. It is the final act of wisdom on this part of the path, acknowledging that the journey, while deeply personal, is also a universal human quest, shared across generations, for the highest peace and the most profound freedom. Our long journey together through the inner cosmos is now drawing to a close. We began in the dark, in the quiet desperation of a mind that could not find rest, a mind besieged by the ghosts of yesterday and the anxieties of tomorrow. From that place of turmoil, we embarked on a path of radical inquiry. We turned our attention inward, first to the solid ground of the body, learning the language of the breath and its lesson of constant change. We waded into the volatile river of our feelings, learning not to be swept away by its currents. We sat in the vast sky of the mind, watching the clouds of thought appear and dissolve without leaving a trace. We deconstructed the very notion of a self, and in its place, we found not a void, but a boundless, interconnected process. We saw that the path to peace was not a battle to be won, but a truth to be seen, a truth stamped upon every fiber of our being, the truth of impermanence. If there is a single message to carry with you from this entire exploration, let it be this: the peace you seek is not in a different place, a different time, or a different set of circumstances. It is not something you need to acquire, achieve, or deserve. It is, and always has been, right here, within you. The source of our sleepless nights and anxious days is not the presence of problems, but our relationship to them. It is the habit of clinging to what is pleasant, the habit of resisting what is painful, and the habit of identifying with the ceaseless chatter of our own minds. We have been trying to find peace by rearranging the furniture in a burning house, when the real task is to extinguish the fire. The fires of greed, hatred, and delusion are quenched by the cooling waters of mindful, compassionate awareness. Freedom is not found by solving all of life's problems, but by letting go of the belief that you are your problems. The profound, unshakable peace we yearn for is the silent, spacious awareness that is present underneath all the noise, patiently waiting for us to stop struggling and simply listen. Therefore, do not feel burdened by the vastness of this path. You do not need to master it all tonight. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single, gentle step. Tonight, as you lay your head upon your pillow, simply invite your awareness to come home. Let go of the day that has passed. It is already a dream. Let go of the day that is to come. It is not yet real. Arrive here, in the simple sacred reality of this moment. Feel the weight of your body on the bed, and then just notice one breath. Notice the air entering, and notice it leaving. That is all. In that one simple, conscious breath, the entire path is contained. In that moment of non-striving, You have already touched the shore of peace. You hold the key to your own liberation. The silence is already within you. All you must do is learn to listen.